Chapter 255. I understand. Du Xiaofu nodded his head. His breakthrough this time was indeed a little too fast, and he was almost in trouble. Fortunately, he came out unscathed in the end. Misfortune was a blessing in disguise as he benefited greatly from his physical body. He could feel that the benefits he received from his physical body had increased by leaps and bounds. This was especially so after Li Yuxiu's demonic aura had tempered his physical body. Du Xiaofu could faintly feel that there was something special about his physical body. This feeling felt as if it was something that should have existed, yet it was also an external force. It was extremely profound and mystical, as if he had returned to his roots. It was an indescribable feeling. However, Du Xiaofu was certain that after his physical body was tempered by the demonic aura, it was undoubtedly much stronger than before. You still want to comprehend the meridian soul? If you don't return my treasured herbs, don't even think of asking me to help you. The small demon glanced at Du Xiaofu. If this shameless fellow before it was a spirit herb or a spiritual weapon, it would definitely pounce on him and swallow him whole. You must have eaten quite a lot of spirit herbs, so it's not like you're at a disadvantage. The one who wants to enter Tianwu Academy is me, not you. The risk I have to take is also much greater than yours. Naturally, I will get more benefits as well, Du Xiaofu said to the small demon. Don't try to fool me. We'll split it equally. This is something we agreed on long ago. Even if you didn't steal the spirit herbs, the people of Tianwu Academy would still be chasing after you. Even though the small demon's voice was childish, it was clear that it wasn't someone who could be easily fooled. Du Xiaofu glared at the small demon. In the end, he could only say helplessly, The next time I come across a treasured herb, I'll definitely leave it for you. Tianwu Academy, I seem to have heard of it before. This name is somewhat familiar. Jin Chun pondered. When he heard the words Tianwu Academy from the small demon's voice, he seemed to be thinking about something. Brother Qin Chun, you know of Tianwu Academy as well? Du Xiaofu asked curiously. I remember hearing of it somewhere, but I can't recall where I heard of it. However, I'm certain that I didn't hear of Tianwu Academy here, Jin Chun said. For a moment, he couldn't recall where he had heard of Tianwu Academy, but he could vaguely recall hearing about it. Putting the matter of Tianwu Academy aside, Jin Chun looked at Du Xiaofu and said, The value of the green bamboo spirit fruit is astonishing. Even the me from back then would be slightly bothered by it. Furthermore, the green bamboo spirit fruit is an invaluable ingredient to concoct the Huangji pill. I'm afraid that Tianwu Academy won't let you off even if you ate the green bamboo spirit fruit. What do you intend to do? Huangji pill? Du Xiaofu recalled that Ouyang Xuan seemed to have mentioned that his drunkard father had snatched an Huangji pill from Tianwu Academy. He didn't expect that he would be consuming the main ingredient of the Huangji pill. Du Xiaofu frowned. Initially, he was still intending to enter Tianwu Academy. However, given the current situation, not only did he end up on the Academy's wanted list like his drunkard father, he even ate the Academy's green bamboo spirit fruit. Tianwu Academy wouldn't let him off so easily. With a bitter smile, Du Xiaofu said to Jin Chun, Tianwu Academy is connected to the dark forest. It seems like I can only leave Tianwu Academy to lie low for a while. It seems like this is the only way. Jin Chun replied. Just as he was about to say something, his face abruptly changed and he exclaimed, Not good, we've been discovered. The intruder is extremely powerful. To think that there would be such a powerful expert in Tianwu Academy. Let's leave quickly. Upon hearing those words, Du Xiaofu's face also changed. If it was back then, Du Xiaofu wouldn't be afraid of being hunted down. At the very least, the elders of Tianwu Academy wouldn't dare to make things difficult for him. However, things were different now. Since he had eaten the green bamboo spirit fruit, the elders of Tianwu Academy would definitely interfere. Jin Chun frowned and said, We can't leave. His aura has already locked onto this place. If I was at my peak, I wouldn't be bothered by it. However, my current condition isn't good. Even though I have obtained quite a bit of benefits from the green bamboo spirit fruit tree and my primordial spirit has recovered significantly, it is still far from enough. What should we do then? Du Xiaogang frowned. Act according to the situation and find an opportunity to escape. With Liu Yao's talent, it isn't impossible for us to escape. Jinqing Chen pondered for a moment before replying. In the dark night, the mountains were pitch black and the wilderness was gloomy. An elderly figure landed in front of a cave in a deep valley. The gray robe that the old man was wearing was a little white. No one knew how many years he had been wearing it for. His face was old, but his long black hair gave off a disheveled and dirty feeling. His pair of deep eyes were just like the stars in the dusky night sky, emitting a deep glow. Kacha. As the old man's figure landed, a piece of rock on the stone wall rolled down with a kacha sound, and then a cave was revealed. Chi. A purple-robed young man leaped down from the cave and landed in front of the old man. Looking at the old man in front of him, there was a slight fluctuation in his deep eyes. Then, in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing, he said, "Greetings, senior." The old man looked at the purple-robed young man in front of him. On his resolute face, his eyebrows were like swords, and his gaze was deep. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes, before he became furious. "You are the Du Xiaofu who stole my green bamboo spirit fruit?" "Yes, I am. It was purely an accident that I took the green bamboo spirit fruit. Please forgive me, senior," Du Xiaofu said. He had not changed out of his purple robe, which was still rather shabby. Elder Zhou was originally filled with anger. He originally wanted to find the brat who had stolen his green bamboo spirit fruit and teach him a lesson before doing anything else. But at this moment, for some reason, Elder Zhou was unable to vent his anger. That brat was completely different from the rumors. He was not cruel at all. Instead, he was polite, neither servile nor overbearing. This made it impossible for him to vent his anger. At his age, how could he vent his anger on such a polite young man? "Hand over the green bamboo spirit fruit and I will be lenient." In the end, Elder Zhou was helpless. "Senior, I cannot hand it over." Du Xiaofu shook his head. His expression did not change as he said, "The green bamboo spirit fruit has already been unintentionally eaten by me. Brat, are you trying to trick me? If you ate the green bamboo spirit fruit raw, with your cultivation level, I'm afraid your body would have exploded and you would have died." Executive Zhou did not believe Du Xiaofu's words at all. Eating the green bamboo spirit fruit raw, not to mention the waste of the precious medicine, even a martial lord realm cultivator would not dare to do so. If the young man in front of him took the green bamboo spirit fruit, he would have exploded and died. Du Xiaofu looked at the old man. He was not joking at all. He said, "I really did eat the green bamboo spirit fruit. It was a narrow escape, but fortunately, there are no major problems right now." Hearing this, Elder Zhou's figure was like a ghost. He immediately arrived in front of Du Xiaofu. A rune light from his palm immediately enveloped Du Xiaofu's body. As the rune light enveloped him, Du Xiaofu felt the surrounding space suddenly solidify. He was unable to move at all. "So strong!" His deep eyes secretly trembled. Du Xiaofu was shocked. At this moment, he truly felt how terrifying the old man in front of him was. If the old man directly wanted to kill him, he would not even have the chance to dodge. No wonder Jin Qichen said that in front of this person, there was no need to struggle at all. It was better to find a way to escape when the time came, lest he looked for abuse. Shi la la. As the rune in the old man's hand enveloped him, on the surface of Du Xiaofu's body, there began to faintly be a rune alternating between white and green. It spread a kind of special fluctuation, revealing a kind of Taoist rhythm. When he saw the rune that revealed a trace of Taoist rhythm on Du Xiaofu's body, Elder Zhou immediately withdrew the rune in his palm. His face instantly paled, his head drooped in front of his chest, and his wrinkled face seemed to have been brushed with a layer of white ash. It was deathly pale, and his lips trembled. Then, the aura of Elder Zhou's entire body began to tremble. His face seemed to be as red as fire because of his excitement. His deep gaze gradually became so sharp that it seemed to be able to split open the air. He stared at Du Xiaofu and said, "Since it's like this, then I can only do this. Even if you have just refined the green bamboo spirit fruit, the medicinal power of the green bamboo spirit fruit will still be in your body. Perhaps the effects will be the same. Qi!" As his voice faded, Elder Zhou waved his hand. A rather dazzling light immediately enveloped Du Xiaofu. Immediately after, Du Xiaofu's figure involuntarily rose into the air, following Elder Zhou as he flew away. He did not struggle in the slightest, because Du Xiaofu could feel that even if he used all of his means to struggle, it would be useless. Du Xiaofu's brows tightened. It seemed that he had to think of a way to escape. Du Xiaofu felt that this old man would absolutely not let him go. Night enveloped the mountain range. Within the simple courtyard, bright pearls shone. Ouyang Shuang's gaze violently trembled. On her stunning face, her vermilion lips were wide open, and she was so astonished that she could not retract her chin. After a long while, the curve of her fiery figure slightly straightened. Looking at the handsome middle-aged man holding a folding fan in front of her, her voice was still filled with shock as she said, "Uncle Shi, that brat secretly ate the green bamboo spirit fruit used to refine the mighty Huang pill, and even destroyed half of the Academy's medicinal field, stealing a large amount of high-grade spiritual medicines. You can't be joking, right?" The corners of Mu Rongshi's mouth curled slightly. His gaze contained a feeling of wanting to cry but having no tears. He was filled with endless hatred as he glared at Ouyang Shuang and said, "Do you think that if what I said was false, that little brat would be able to enter the top 10 of the bounty list? Like father, like son. That bastard Du Tingxian, it was not enough for him to bring disaster to the Academy. He even allowed his son to bring disaster to the Academy once again. If Principal Zhou knew that that brat Du Xiaofu was Du Dingxuan's son, I'm afraid that he would immediately have the heart to destroy the Du family." Chapter 256. This. Ouyang Shuang was at a loss for words. Her father had stolen the Academy's treasures, the mighty Emperor Pellet and the Lightning Dragon, while her son had stolen the main ingredient for the second mighty Emperor Pellet, the green bamboo spirit fruit, as well as a large amount of spirit herbs from the herb farm. Both father and son were listed on the Academy's bounty board. What kind of father and son pair were they? They were practically the bane of Tianwu Academy, born to be its nemesis. A moment later, Ouyang Shuang's red lips parted slightly. After some hesitation, she couldn't help but ask, "Uncle Shi, is there any other way?" Mu Rongxi raised his head and said, "For such a huge matter, I can't help even if I wanted to. If that brat has the ability to escape, then so be it. But if he is captured, he will probably be refined by Elder Zhou like the green bamboo spirit fruit." In the blazing mountain range, the temperature was astonishing. Du Xiaofu's body was bound involuntarily. He knew that he was in the crater of a volcano. The surrounding rocks were crimson red, as though lava was surging. A moment later, Du Xiaofu arrived at the courtyard. This courtyard was very strange. It was built with ancient crimson rocks, and the heat in the air was surging. In the vast space, Du Xiaofu was finally released from his bindings, regaining his freedom. At this moment, Du Xiaofu wasn't moved by the fact that he had regained his freedom. Instead, he looked at the crimson cauldron in front of him in surprise. The cauldron was astonishing. It was a three-legged cauldron with a height of 1 zhang and a diameter of more than 10 meters. It exuded an ancient aura, and many ancient runes were carved on it. Light flowed around it, spreading out in all directions. The most shocking thing was that there were 7 ferocious-looking mutated beast heads around the cauldron. They looked like dragons and pythons, and they were as red as fire. At this moment, it was as though they were alive. They opened their mouths, and crimson flames were sucked in from the ground. Around the cauldron, crimson lava covered the ground. The aura it exuded was frightening. If one's cultivation was slightly lower, they would probably be vaporized by the high temperature. Walala! The 7 streams of lava were connected to the cauldron. Within the cauldron, a glow spread out, and the smell of spiritual herbs was rich. "Greetings, Elder." Within the room, there were 2 old men, 3 middle-aged men and a beautiful woman, as well as a few other young men and women. Upon seeing Elder Zhou, they immediately bowed, while their gazes remained on Du Xiaofu, their eyes filled with doubt. "Elder, we can't wait any longer. The green bamboo spirit fruit must be added into the medicine. If we don't add it now, it will be too late," an old man said to Elder Zhou. "The green bamboo spirit fruit has already been eaten by this brat," Elder Zhou said to the crowd. "Fortunately, we made it in time. Treat this brat like a green bamboo spirit fruit and refine him. According to the theory of medicinal talismans, perhaps the effects would be similar. I'll handle the rest. You all can leave. I will set up a restriction. No one is allowed to disturb me." "Yes." Everyone looked at Du Xiaofu in shock before leaving with their own astonished gazes. As everyone left, one rune after another condensed and transformed in Elder Zhou's palm before disappearing into the surroundings. "We're in big trouble now." At this moment, Du Xiaofu could no longer pretend to be calm. Profound qi erupted from his body as a pale golden halo spread out. He wanted to escape immediately. He couldn't let this old man refine him. "You want to escape now? Don't you think it's too slow?" A huge binding force instantly enveloped Du Xiaofu's body, making it impossible for Du Xiaofu to move. He was completely unable to resist. The old man's strength was too strong, so strong that it exceeded Du Xiaofu's imagination. Du Xiaofu had only felt this kind of feeling when his drunkard father had shocked everyone in the Battle of the Stone City. Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, what a pair of bastard father and son! The older one stole my Hongji pill, and the younger one stole my green bamboo spirit fruit. Did I owe your Du family in my previous life? Bastard! As Du Xiaofu was bound, he heard a loud curse. In the end, his body was thrown to the side and he regained his freedom. Du Xiaofu raised his head in astonishment. His eyes were filled with shock as he said, "Senior, you know my father? How do you know that we're father and son? I can't forget even if I wanted to." Elder Zhou glared fiercely at Du Xiaofu. His face and neck were red, and his veins were bulging. He said, "When I first saw you, I knew that you were Du Tingshuan's son. Your face is as shameless as your father's, but your eyes are like your mother's. There's no mistake about it." When Du Xiaofu heard this, his heart tightened for no reason. He stared intently at the elder and said, "You know my mother? I really don't know why that girl fell for Du Tingxian. In my opinion, she's not even as good as Mu Rongxi." Elder Zhou glared at Du Xiaofu and said, "Little bastard, you only need to tell me now. Do you want to live or die? I don't think anyone wants to die. Don't you think so, senior?" Du Xiaofu looked at Elder Zhou, his eyes secretly moving. Based on Elder Zhou's tone, it seemed that there was still a chance. "Even your tone is exactly the same as Du Tingshuan's. No wonder they're father and son." Elder Zhou glared at Du Xiaofu and said, "You now have 2 choices. First, I will refine you like the green bamboo spirit fruit. Who knows, I might even be able to refine a Huangji pill. Let's talk about the second choice." Du Xiaofu clicked his tongue. Just thinking about it made his hair stand on end. Elder Zhou stared at Du Xiaofu with a serious expression before saying, "Let's talk about it when you're still alive. I'll still throw you into the alchemy cauldron." When Du Xiaofu heard these words, his face instantly turned ugly. This old fellow seemed to be deliberately toying with him. "You can directly swallow the green bamboo spirit fruit. Although you'll obtain astonishing results, do you know what effects it will have if it's refined into a Huangji pill?" Elder Zhou asked. Du Xiaofu shook his head. Although he had learned a lot about alchemy and symbol masters from Jinxing Chun, he had yet to come into contact with high-grade pills. Therefore, he really did not know the effects of the Huangji pill. "Then do you know about the Martial King realm?" Elder Zhou asked Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu nodded his head. The Martial King realm was the peak existence of this continent. It was rumored that the number of King realm experts on this continent could be counted on one's fingers. Any one of them was an overlord. The Thunder Lion in the Stone City was currently in the process of stepping into the Beast King realm at the peak of the complete Beast Marquis realm. It was unknown how it was doing right now and whether it had truly stepped into the ranks of King realm experts. Then what's after the Martial King realm? Do you know? Elder Zhou glanced at Du Xiaofu and asked. When Du Xiaofu heard these words, his gaze slightly trembled as he said, Martial King realm! When his voice fell, Du Xiaofu's heart surged with some yearning. The Martial King realm was an existence that ordinary cultivators could only dream of but not reach. The Martial King realm was an existence that ordinary cultivators could only dream of but not reach even for Pulse Spirit realm and Martial Marquis realm experts. It was rumored that once one reached the Martial King realm, they could move mountains and seas with just a wave of their hand. Martial King realm. In the entire Stone Dragon Empire, there are more than 100 million people. How many cultivators can step into the Martial King realm? Even in the Tianwu Academy, where geniuses gather, how many people have broken through to the Martial King realm after so many years? Elder Zhou said to Du Xiaofu. To put it simply, the mighty Huang pill is an absolute royal grade elixir. If a cultivator consumes the mighty Huang pill, they have at least a 50% chance of stepping into the Martial King realm. Du Xiaofu looked at Elder Zhou, and his eyes flickered. The mighty Huang pill was indeed worthy of being called the treasure of the Tianwu Academy. It could allow a cultivator to have a 50% chance of stepping into the Martial King realm. In front of the mighty Huang pill, any Martial King realm cultivator would be willing to give up everything to exchange for it. It's a pity that you've swallowed the green bamboo spirit fruit. Although you're still alive, you haven't been able to bring out the full potential of the green bamboo spirit fruit. Elder Zhou looked at Du Xiaofu and thought of the green bamboo spirit fruit. He couldn't help but feel his heart ache as he said, The other spirit herbs needed to refine the mighty Huang Dan are all in this medicinal cauldron. Even if it's me, I still don't have the strength to refine the mighty Huang Dan. I can only rely on the combined efforts of everyone and the earth core fire. Since you've already consumed the green bamboo spirit fruit and are still alive, you naturally have some means and ability. Therefore, I will throw you into the medicinal cauldron. You can absorb as much of the other spirit herbs as you can, but whether you live or die will depend on your own abilities. Senior! Just as Du Xiaofu was about to say something, a room light suddenly enveloped him. His body was bound once again. Before he could react, he appeared in a blazing space of flames in the next instant. Kid, if you're able to live, I'll write off the matter of the green bamboo spirit fruit. At that time, you just have to agree to one of my conditions. If you die, it'll be because you're not fated to obtain the green bamboo spirit fruit. I'll refine you into the mighty Huang pill. As these words entered Du Xiaofu's ears, the bindings around his body disappeared. Walala! As Du Xiaofu regained his freedom, a sea of flames suddenly appeared around Du Xiaofu's body. Under the high temperature, even the space seemed to tremble. The entire surrounding space was scarlet red. A terrifying blazing aura suddenly spread throughout the space, accompanied by blazing runes that flickered within the sea of flames. The sea of flames completely enveloped Du Xiaofu. What a terrifying temperature! Du Xiaofu's body immediately felt the burning pain from the blazing aura as he was enveloped by the blazing sea of flames. Compared to when he had faced the heavenly flaming Han Pan Yu's attack, this blazing temperature was like the difference between heaven and earth. Today's explosion. Asking for fresh flowers and recommendation tickets. Little you continue writing? Chapter 257. At this moment, the flames in this space were truly terrifying, as if they could incinerate and destroy everything. The burning pain made his body feel like it was about to melt. This kind of heat was definitely not normal, and was not something that could be compared to ordinary heat. At this moment, if an ordinary pulse spirit realm cultivator were to be thrown in here, they would only be able to last a few breaths at most before being incinerated to ashes. Suddenly, in just a short instant, just as Du Xiaofu had activated a faint golden halo of profound energy to resist the terrifying flames, a mysterious energy spread out from within the faint golden halo of light. This mysterious energy seemed to be able to directly resist the terrifying heat, causing the burning pain that had just radiated from Du Xiaofu's body to disappear in an instant. In just a short moment, Du Xiaofu, who had just felt the burning pain in his body, felt the pain gradually disappear. At this moment, Du Xiaofu could even feel that the mysterious energy in his body wasn't resisting the blazing power, but devouring the blazing flames. Du Xiaofu was shocked. Upon closer inspection, he found that this mysterious energy did not come from the cultivation method of the great golden-winged rock, but from a different kind of energy. He could faintly sense a trace of familiarity with it. Walala! The blazing flames in this space were constantly being absorbed and devoured by Du Xiaofu's body, causing Du Xiaofu's body to not fear the terrifying heat at all. This feeling reminded Du Xiaofu of the time when he had fought with Pan Yu, when such a change had occurred in his body as well. Kid, hurry up and find some spiritual liquid. That person is right. If you can absorb the spiritual liquid, you will be able to obtain the greatest benefits. It might even be better than when you take the mighty emperor pill. Jin Qingchun's voice rang out. However, under these blazing flames, it was not convenient for his primordial spirit to appear. I feel spiritual medicine. Du Xiaofu, let me eat some too. The little demon's voice also rang out. Forget it, I'll help you find the spirit medicine next time. This is useful for the green bamboo spirit fruit. Du Xiaofu replied. His body was wrapped in a faint golden halo, but the surging flames around him were absorbed from the outside of the faint golden halo. Walala! Streams of flames entered Du Xiaofu's body before mysteriously disappearing. Humph, shameless human! The little demon cursed. Not long after, Du Xiaofu finally found a palm-sized spiritual liquid in the midst of the rolling flames. Multicolored light burst out, and the medicinal energy was astonishing. It was definitely not much weaker than the energy of the green bamboo spirit fruit. It was extremely vast. The spiritual liquid shone brightly, and a rich fragrance assailed his nostrils. The astonishing medicinal energy was like a volcano that could erupt at any time. Kid, the mighty emperor pill will not increase your cultivation level by much. It is more to lay the foundation for breaking through to the martial emperor realm in the future. As for its effects, you will naturally understand it in the future. However, the spiritual liquid refined from these spiritual medicine is very pure. After you take it, it will be difficult to deal with it. If you can't deal with it, it will be a disaster for you. Jin Qingchun could feel the astonishing energy fluctuations of the spiritual liquid and reminded Du Xiaofu. The spiritual liquid is amazing, but it's not impossible to deal with it. Since that old man wants to help me, I won't hold back. A smile flashed across Du Xiaofu's face, and there was some anticipation in his eyes. At the same time, he opened his mouth and directly swallowed the palm-sized spiritual liquid along with the flames into his stomach. As the spiritual liquid was directly sucked into his stomach, it immediately turned into a ferocious energy that spread out. The ferocious energy was like a ferocious beast that had been awakened. Immediately, it crashed back and forth in Du Xiaofu's body. An intense pain immediately spread out from his body. The ferocious energy seemed to want to destroy everything. Fortunately, Du Xiaofu was in his peak condition at this time. Coupled with the fact that his physical body had been strengthened by a lot this time, he was barely able to bear it at this moment. However, the intense pain that spread out from his body still made Du Xiaofu roar uncontrollably. Ah! Du Xiaofu roared. The ferocious energy immediately seemed to explode his body and kill him. The ferocious energy wandered around the surface of his body, wanting to break out of his body. Refine the golden feather! Du Xiaofu endured the excruciating pain in his body and withdrew the golden halo around his body. Suddenly, he violently slammed into the edge of this space. He didn't know what he had hit, but rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly, and waves of excruciating pain could be felt from his body. As the golden halo around his body retracted, the blazing flames in the space were directly sucked into Du Xiaofu's body. The purple robe on Du Xiaofu's body also began to burn into ashes in the flames. The small pagoda and the small demon stone body of the small demon also fell from Du Xiaofu's body. A qiankun bag fell from the ashes of his clothes. but it was immediately wrapped up by a stream of light and swallowed into the small pagoda. However, the surging heat in this space did not affect Du Xiaofu's physical body in the slightest. Du Xiaofu only felt a faint burning pain, but it was still within the limits of what he could bear. Rumble! The ferocious energy in his body was surging like a stampede of 10,000 beasts. Du Xiaofu activated the body refining art to consume the energy, refining all the energy of the liquid into his body. The vibrations caused the space to tremble, and rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly. During this process, what Du Xiaofu did not expect was that the raging flames within this realm would also refine the golden feather, just like how it had absorbed Liu Xiao's evil devil qi yesterday. It would also refine the evil devil qi into his body. Even the mysterious energy of the devouring flames in his body was refined into his physical body at the same time. Outside the large cauldron, Elder Zhou's gaze was rather puzzled. The large cauldron in front of him rumbled and shook, as if there was a ferocious beast trapped inside that wanted to break out of the cauldron. The 7 earth core flames connected to the large cauldron gradually weakened. Hand seals formed, runes surged, and the entire space fluctuated with runes. His mind went into the large cauldron, and Elder Zhou's old face suddenly changed. Qi La! Changing his hand seals, Elder Zhou waved his hand, and the 7 earth core flames instantly intensified, surging into the large cauldron. The terrifying temperature increased by several folds, and the aura of the cauldron began to increase. Within the large cauldron, the flames intensified, and it was as if lava was gushing out. Du Xiaofu's entire body was enveloped by the scorching flames, but the mysterious energy in his body continued to devour the flames. However, as the flames intensified, the burning pain on Du Xiaofu's body grew stronger as well. At the same time, more of the scorching flames were being refined into his body. Within the large cauldron, Du Xiaofu was being tempered like a spiritual herb. The terrifying temperature was not something that an ordinary person could endure. Rumble! The large cauldron shook, and rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly, as though it would shatter at any moment. Within Tianwu Academy, time slowly ticked by. As Du Xiaofu entered the top 10 of the bounty board, this shocking news spread not only within Tianwu Academy, but also throughout the empire. In a simple and unadorned courtyard, Du Xiaoman stood in front of a woman in a long purple dress. Her long black hair was as smooth as a waterfall, loosely tied up. Her ethereal eyes were filled with shock as she asked, "Teacher, is what you said true? You have to be prepared. 6 days ago, Du Xiaofu was captured by Elder Zhou. No one knows what the current situation is, but I'm afraid that it won't be good for him. The green bamboo spirit fruit is Elder Zhou's lifeblood. Not only did Du Xiaofu destroy half of the herb farm, he even stole the green bamboo spirit fruit. I'm afraid that Elder Zhou will not be polite to him. Nothing must happen to that brat." Du Xiaoman's figure shook when she heard this, and her graceful figure seemed to be silently enchanting. Her eyes that were clear like a stream emanated a tranquil aura while ripples arose on her pretty face, and her cherry lips curled up into a moving arc. In the unadorned courtyard, Ouyang Shuang's beautiful face changed. Her large eyes were filled with astonishment as she looked at Mu Rongxi and pleaded, "Uncle Shi, what should we do now? That brat has been captured by Elder Zhou. Will he be fine? Will Elder Zhou really treat him as the green bamboo spirit fruit and refine him? Elder Zhou has set up a restriction, and no one can enter. I don't know what's going on inside, but the green bamboo spirit fruit is Elder Zhou's lifeblood. I'm afraid that brat's situation isn't optimistic. I hope that brat didn't consume the green bamboo spirit fruit or else." Mu Rongxi's expression turned grave after his words sounded. If that brat had consumed the green bamboo spirit fruit, the situation would be unimaginable. The majestic palace stretched endlessly, and it was majestic and magnificent. "Xingnan, how are your arrangements going?" Within the palace, an old man looked at a young lady dressed in tight clothes and asked. His face was filled with wrinkles, resembling the wrinkles of a bitter gourd. His cheekbones were like 2 small mountains on his thin face, and he had a thin and pale goatee. He gave off a sage-like vibe, and yet he still struck fear into those who looked at him. The young lady dressed in tight clothes had a pair of slender legs and a slim waist, outlining her alluring curves. There was a hint of coolness in her elegant demeanor. She looked at the old man and replied respectfully, "Senior Uncle, I have made all the arrangements. We are just waiting for Senior Uncle's arrival to activate Tianwu Academy." "Tianwu Academy? I've never heard of it, but I would like to take a look." A young man spoke. He was around 16 to 17 years old, and the curves of his handsome face were as perfect as those in legends. Chapter 258. Long eyelashes, eyebrows faintly discernible under his messy fringe, and a pair of slightly plump lips the color of begonia petals. At the mention of Tianwu Academy, a playful smile appeared on the young man's face, with a hint of naughtiness, as though he did not take it to heart at all. The tight-fitting lady smiled faintly and said, "Junior Gu Yu's talent is naturally unparalleled. However, Tianwu Academy has been established for many years and has quite a strong foundation. In the past, Tianwu Academy had produced many unparalleled experts. It's good to have a strong foundation. Otherwise, if one is too weak, it would be meaningless." The young man smiled faintly, a trace of a smile spreading across his face. His pair of dazzling black eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and present, and when he smiled, there was a hint of danger. In the quiet bamboo forest, there was a faint moon in the sparse forest. A round moon gradually rose into the sky against the night sky. A patch of transparent gray clouds covered the moonlight. Above the bamboo forest, there seemed to be a patch of light smoke, as though it was falling into a dream. On a bamboo chair, an old man was lying down lightly, taking a nap. A lady walked over. She was dressed in a light blue dress, with a green veil draped over her body. Her shoulders were slender, her waist was slender, and her skin was smooth and supple. Her hair was casually tied into a loose bun, with a light purple flower inserted into it. She did not wear any makeup, and her lips were not red. The lady walked into the bamboo forest alone. Her aura was like an orchid, and her charm was boneless. Then, she quietly sat down beside the bamboo chair. "Fair lass, you're here." The old man opened his eyes. On his skinny and tanned face, his gaze was rather bright, without any turbidity. "I'll look for grandfather to make a decision." The lady smiled sweetly, her beautiful eyes filled with intelligence. The night breeze in the bamboo forest blew a few strands of hair down to her waist, as though they were carried away by the wind. "Lass, you've always been smart. There's nothing you can't decide on." The old man stood up. His entire body was lean and thin. The plain robe on his body made him look like a bamboo pole carrying a cloth bag. His bony chest was stuck to the robe, and one could faintly see that there were strips of blinds on his body. If Du Xiaofu was here, he would definitely recognize that the old man was North Vanquishing King, whom he had met in the dark forest. The woman helped the North Vanquishing Prince up and said, "Grandfather, I can't make the decision regarding the Divine Radiance Court. I just received news from the palace that we will head to the Tianwu Academy tomorrow. Tianwu Academy has existed for so many years, but it seems like there are still people who are concerned about it." Lord North Vanquishing King frowned slightly. The moonlight shone through the gaps in the bamboo forest and shone on his dark face, casting mottled shadows. After a short pause, he said, "I'm afraid we can't do anything about this. It seems that the Imperial Palace is also interested this time. Their actions are quite profound. They are all testing us. Grandpa, I know what to do." The woman smiled. With just a few words, she seemed to have resolved some of the worries in her heart. With a faint smile, her eyes were bright and alluring. It's good that you understand." North Vanquishing Prince stretched his limping body. His originally skinny body now looked like a long wooden stick. Then he looked at the girl and smiled. "You still look good like this. Next time, don't make yourself look like that. Even Grandpa can't stand it, let alone other young geniuses. Don't be so scared that no one will come to propose marriage. Anyway, you won't like those people anyway. Grandpa, you're doing it again." The woman stared at the North vanquishing king with her beautiful eyes. Her shy expression made her look charming and charming. Sigh, I wonder how that brat in the dark forest is doing. He's just a little too young. Otherwise, he would be a good candidate to be my grandson-in-law. The North vanquishing king smiled. Late at night, the sky was filled with dew. A round moon hung high in the sky, shining its cold light onto the ground. Deep in the courtyard, a middle-aged man stood. He had a tall and sturdy figure, and his facial features were distinct and deep. His deep and dark eyes didn't seem restrained. He said to the old man in front of him, "Father, there's news from the palace. The people from the Divine Light Court have arrived and will be heading to Tianwu Academy tomorrow." Hearing this, the old man's expression didn't change much. His eyes were black and shiny, and his gaze was so sharp that it seemed as though it could pierce through anything. His silver-white hair seemed to be covered in snow, as though he had been through many hardships. He said, "The Divine Light Court is probing the palace and Tianwu Academy. The palace is also probing our reaction. Since that's the case, you should make a trip there." "I understand." The man nodded his head and left quietly. Time passed like sand between one's fingers. Du Xiaofu had been in the cauldron for a total of 9 days. Rumble. The cauldron swayed, and the rumbling sounds became louder and louder. For a total of 7 days, the rumbling sounds never stopped. Crack, crack. Runes spread around the three-legged cauldron. At this moment, many cracks had already appeared on the surface of the cauldron. Shockingly hot flames spread out from the cracks, and golden rays of light shot out. How can this brat be so abnormal? Elder Zhou sat cross-legged in front of the three-legged cauldron. His body was shrouded in a dazzling light, and his eyes, which were as deep as the stars, were filled with shock. Looking at the continuously cracking cauldron, his gaze was filled with fear and trepidation. Through his mental energy, Elder Zhou clearly knew that Du Xiaofu was completely unharmed in the past 7 days. Instead, he had absorbed 7 days' worth of earth core fire to refine himself. Furthermore, his forging methods were extremely cruel and extremely masochistic. It was no wonder that people would say that this brat was extremely savage. Although this cauldron wasn't an extremely powerful talisman weapon, it was still a medicinal cauldron. It was almost comparable to a talisman weapon. Ordinary talisman masters used spiritual cauldrons and talisman cauldrons to refine pills, but there were extremely few pills that could be refined using medicinal cauldrons. At this moment, seeing that the medicinal cauldron had been fiercely smashed apart by Du Xiaofu, Elder Zhou was shocked. Just how powerful did one's physical body have to be in order to possess such ferocious strength? Within the medicinal cauldron, Du Xiaofu's body was wrapped in surging earth core fire. On the surface of his body, faint golden talisman inscriptions flickered. It seemed that in these 9 days he had once again refined the golden feather to its peak. After being refined by various energies and flames, as if it had been tempered into steel, Du Xiaofu's physical body had once again transformed. It could be said that it had undergone an astonishing transformation. Walala! At this moment, Du Xiaofu stood within the space of flames. The terrifying aura on his body was so domineering that it caused people to tremble, as if it could sweep through everything. The talisman inscriptions on his body flickered, as if a golden-winged rock had flapped its wings and rushed out. It was terrifying, sharp, domineering, and intimidating. At this moment, the faint golden talisman inscriptions on Du Xiaofu's body emitted a hazy light, as if there was a mist lingering about. A terrifying aura pervaded the air, transforming. Perhaps it could be said that there was something awakening within the golden talisman inscriptions. Perhaps even the real golden-winged rock had not awakened this kind of awakening. At this moment, something seemed to have been unintentionally awakened by Du Xiaofu, and a hidden aura was gradually awakening. At this moment, even Du Xiaofu himself felt a kind of powerful feeling. His physical body had been refined to its peak, and it was still improving. It was as if he was about to step into a new world. This kind of feeling was something that had never appeared before. Roar! Du Xiaofu shouted loudly, and continued to fiercely refine himself. Again and again, he attacked the cauldron within the flames, refining and refining himself. He wanted to step into a new world in refining the golden feather. Early in the morning, everything was silent. The first rays of dawn slowly awakened the sleeping creatures. When the first ray of light pierced through the thin mist, it enveloped the quiet Tianwu Academy. Wang! Suddenly, early in the morning, the ancient bell chimes sounded in the academy. There was a total of 6 chimes, and they reverberated through the mountains. What's going on? Did something happen in the academy? The 6 chimes represent a welcome. There should be some important figure coming to Tianwu Academy. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a ceremony. I wonder who it is. Let's go and take a look. In Tianwu Academy, many freshmen and seniors rushed out from various places and gathered at the entrance of the academy. Early in the morning, the mountain range around Tianwu Academy was filled with vague shadows. The mountain peaks were all different, and they exuded an ancient aura. Outside the academy, on the massive square, many elders were gathered. Even though they had retracted their auras, they still gave off an oppressive aura. The few elders standing at the front were Elder He Hu, Elder Sun, Elder Murongxi, Elder Liao, Elder Fu, and the purple-robed Elder Shengguan. Behind the elders, there were many senior students and instructors of the academy standing. The freshmen were all in the academy from afar, and they were still not used to the invisible aura of the elders. Amidst the crowd, Du Xiaoman and Ouyang Shuang stood together. One of them was fiery, beautiful, and noble, and no one dared to approach her. The other was fiery, seductive, and seductive. At the same time, she exuded a cold aura that one could only admire from afar. When the two ladies stood together, they immediately attracted the fiery gazes of the surrounding youths. However, no one dared to look at them directly. They could only sneak a peek from afar. Sister Xiaoman, there is still no news of that lad. What should we do? Ouyang Shuang looked at Du Xiaoman with worry in her large eyes. I hope that nothing bad will happen to him, Du Xiaoman said with worry in her eyes. Walala! Right at this moment, amidst the tranquility of the morning, a huge fluctuation suddenly appeared in the horizon. Vaguely, several powerful foreign auras flew over. Chapter 259. On the square, all of the elders raised their eyebrows and stared at the sky. Swoosh, swoosh. In just a few breaths, the sound of wind breaking could be heard from the horizon outside Tianwu Academy. Eventually, dozens of tiny specks of light appeared in the sky. Vaguely, it was as though a storm was sweeping over, causing the mountains and forests in the distance to tremble. The specks of light streaked across the sky at an extremely fast speed. As the sound of wind breaking grew louder and louder, dozens of massive demonic beast mounts appeared outside Tianwu Academy. In Tianwu Academy, many students raised their heads and looked at the sky. Then, astonishment appeared on their faces. Those demonic beasts were extraordinary. The top half of them were demonic beasts ranked on the Earth Beast board. There were several people seated on each of the demonic beast mounts, and they were divided into 10 groups. The demonic beasts in the lead were especially extraordinary. A huge red eagle hovered in the sky. Its gaze was sharp and ferocious. As it flapped its wings, a blazing aura spread out, causing the air currents to howl like a storm. On the giant red eagle, a young lady wearing an orange-red outfit stood at the front. Her long and slender legs and slim waist made her already tall figure appear even more slender. Her elegant temperament carried a hint of coolness. A huge white eagle that was as white as snow emanated an icy aura. A lady dressed in a light blue dress stood on top of the white eagle. Her waist was slim, and her skin was smooth. She didn't wear any makeup, and her lips weren't dyed red. A few strands of hair cascaded down to her waist, giving her an elegant and charming appearance. A huge tiger stood in the air, looking as though it was about to pounce. It was exceptionally ferocious. A middle-aged man sat on the back of the huge tiger. His facial features were distinct and deep, and his eyes were dark and unrestrained. That's the raging flame demonic falcon, and the mystic snow eagle, and the Xianqi demonic tiger. Looking at the extraordinary demonic beasts, there were some who were astonished. However, their astonishment wasn't too exaggerated. After all, the students of Tianwu Academy had extraordinary backgrounds. Even though the demonic beasts were rare and powerful, they weren't too exaggerated. On behalf of Tianwu Academy, we welcome you all. Elder Sun and the others raised their heads and clasped their fists. Their attitude was respectful, and they didn't disrespect the prestige of Tianwu Academy. Elders, you're too kind. Xingnan greets all the elders. In midair, a woman in an orange-red outfit descended from the back of the raging flame falcon. After that, many figures jumped down from their demonic beast mounts. Their auras were restrained, but the invisible fluctuations affected the energy of heaven and earth. It was very shocking. Greetings, elders. On the backs of the demonic beasts, silhouettes landed one after another. Some were graceful, some were elegant, and one after another, a formless aura descended upon Tianwu Academy. Greetings, First Princess. Elder Sun nodded slightly at the woman in orange with a smile in his eyes. You must be Elder Sun Biyue, the person in charge of Tianwu Academy's talisman department. I've long heard of your name. My second sister and third brother are currently studying in Tianwu Academy as well. Elder Sun, you can address me as Xingnan. The orange-red outfit woman smiled. Her disposition and appearance were in no way inferior to Ouyang Shuang and Du Xiaoman. After which, she looked at a wrinkled old man with a goatee beside her and introduced him to the experts of Tianwu Academy. Allow me to introduce him to the elders. This is Elder Gong Sun Dao from the Divine Radiance Court, and he is also my martial uncle. Elder Gong Sun has an otherworldly disposition. Greetings. Elder Sun nodded his head. Elder Sun is too polite. Sorry for disturbing you in Tianwu Academy. A smile appeared on Gong Sun Dao's wrinkled face, but it made his face look like a bitter gourd. Even though he had an otherworldly disposition, the formless aura that he exuded was intimidating. Roar! Right at this moment, a howl resounded through the sky from a low altitude, and a colossus that was over 100 meters long swept through the air. This massive creature was a ferocious flood dragon. Its entire body was reddish-green in color, and it emanated a brilliant glow. Inscriptions could be vaguely seen on its body, and its scales covered its body. The air in the surroundings surged and rippled. What a ferocious demonic beast! The students of Tianwu Academy were astonished. The massive flood dragon was terrifying, and its aura was like that of the king of all beasts. Under its roar, the demonic beasts in the surroundings trembled. It's the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon. At this moment, the elders of the Tianwu Academy exclaimed inwardly. That was actually a Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon. Flood dragons possessed the bloodline of demonic dragons. The Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon was a demonic beast ranked on the Heavenly Beast ranking. At this moment, on the back of the Crimson Cloud Wyrm that surged with divine lights and possessed a mighty imposing aura stood a young man around the age of 16 or 17. The young man's handsome face was round and perfect like the beautiful young men in the legends, and his long eyelashes and brows that flew diagonally to his temples were faintly discernible under the cover of his messy bangs. It was obvious that the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon on the Heavenly Beast ranking was the young man's mount. For a young man to have a terrifying demonic beast on the Heavenly Beast ranking as his mount, it was clear that his identity wasn't simple. At this moment, the young man stood on the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon. He was exceptionally handsome, and his aura was astonishing. Ripples appeared in the eyes of many girls in the square. Roar! Stepping on the Scarlet Cloud Wyrm, the young man dashed toward the entrance of Tianwu Academy. A playful smile hung on his slightly plump lips. There was a hint of contempt in his eyes, as though he didn't care about Tianwu Academy at all. Everyone dismounted from their demonic beast mounts as a sign of respect for Tianwu Academy. Even the elders of Tianwu Academy didn't ride on demonic beast mounts to enter Tianwu Academy. At this moment, the young man seemed to be doing so intentionally. Dismount from your mount! You are not allowed to act impudently in Tianwu Academy! On the square, Du Xiaoman's beautiful figure immediately flew out and blocked in front of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon like a bolt of lightning. Her enchanting and graceful figure emitted a piercingly cold aura. The young man looked at Du Xiaoman with a smile on his face. His dazzling black eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and present, and his smile carried a hint of danger. After which, he completely ignored Du Xiaoman and charged toward the entrance of Tianwu Academy with a roar. Roar! The scarlet cloud flood dragon roared and a torrential aura surged from its body. It released a terrifying aura and charged toward Du Xiaoman with its mouth wide open. Impudent! Du Xiaoman's figure moved gracefully. Her slender hands and palm imprints changed. A palm imprint shook the air and extended towards the scarlet cloud flood dragon. The scarlet cloud flood dragon completely disregarded the palm imprint. With its massive body, it crashed into Du Xiaoman's palm imprint. On the surface of the massive flood dragon's body, waves of runes surged and destroyed Du Xiaoman's palm imprint. After which, a terrifying force engulfed Du Xiaoman's body. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, causing Du Xiaoman's delicate body to fall straight down from the sky. Blood suddenly spurted out from her mouth, before her body heavily smashed into the ground. Be careful! Ouyang Shuang reached out and caught Du Xiaoman's body. Under the huge impact, Ouyang Shuang's delicate body was shaken several steps back. Her face was pale, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Only then did she manage to stabilize her body. Perfect Pulse Spirit Realm! Everyone was shocked. The Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon had actually reached the Perfect Pulse Spirit Realm. As a demonic beast on the Heavenly Beast ranking, even a martial marquis in the Perfect Pulse Spirit Realm wouldn't be able to do anything to it. Du Xiaoman's profound Pulse Spirit Realm cultivation was naturally unable to do anything to the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon. Roar! The Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon roared and revealed a ferocious glint in its eyes. A boundless aura swept across the sky. The Heavenly Beast ranking wasn't just for show. Its terrifying aura caused one's heart to tremble. Students of the Tianwu Academy, listen up. Tomorrow morning I, Gu Yu, will challenge the Tianwu Academy. Let me see if the Tianwu Academy is worthy of its reputation. Gu Yu's voice was as loud as thunder, and his gaze was filled with arrogance. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Yu stepped on the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon and soared into the sky. He directly flew through the gate of the Tianwu Academy, not putting the Tianwu Academy in his eyes. Swish, swish, numerous gazes were directed at the young man and Flood Dragon who had completely disregarded the Tianwu Academy. The students of the Tianwu Academy were furious, but they knew that they wouldn't be able to stop them. Even if they did, they would only be embarrassing themselves. Just the Flood Dragon alone was something that only a martial marquis would be able to withstand. The gazes of all the elders trembled. As elders of the Tianwu Academy, if they were to make a move on a 16 or 17-year-old youth, it would affect the reputation of the Tianwu Academy. This disciple is mischievous and has only cultivated in the divine court for a short period of time. Due to his young age, he doesn't know the rules. Please forgive me, Gong Sun Dao said to Elder Sunday. However, there wasn't much change in his attitude. Instead, there was a hint of contempt in his eyes as he continued. Gu Yu has always been arrogant and doesn't put those of the same generation in his eyes. Now that he has come to the Tianwu Academy, he dares to act so presumptuously and even dares to challenge the students of the Tianwu Academy. Why don't we make use of this opportunity to ask the elders of the Tianwu Academy to send a student to teach him a lesson so that he will know his place in the future and behave himself? The gazes of the people behind him flickered, but no one said anything. How could the people present not understand the meaning behind Gong Sun Dao's words? On the surface, he sounded polite, but in reality, Gong Sun Dao was implying that Gu Yu was young and had only cultivated in the Divine Light Court for a short period of time. Since he challenged the Tianwu Academy tomorrow, the Tianwu Academy had no choice but to accept the challenge. If they accepted the challenge, the Tianwu Academy would be too embarrassed to send those overaged youths. Elder Gong Sun, you don't have to blame yourself. Since Elder Gong Sun is interested, then let the Tianwu Academy witness the glory of a disciple of the Divine Light Court tomorrow. Elder Sun had a faint smile on his face. He didn't say anything and didn't lose sight of the general situation. However, at this moment, There was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Thank you, Marshal Qing Tian, for the reward. Vermilion Bird, Smiling Beauty, for the reward. Chapter 260. As a large group of guests entered Tianwu Academy, news of an extraordinary young man riding on a scarlet cloud jiao and barging into Tianwu Academy spread like wildfire. The news of the young man named Gu Yu challenging the students of Tianwu Academy the next day also spread like wildfire. Bastard, that brat is too despicable. He actually dares to look down on our Tianwu Academy. Since he dares to challenge the students of our academy, he's clearly looking down on us. Get someone to teach that brat a lesson tomorrow. Teaching that brat a lesson is easier said than done. It's said that his mount is a scarlet cloud jiao at the great circle of the pulse spirit realm, a demonic beast on the heaven beast ranking. Even if his mount were to make a move, it would be able to kill a bunch of experts on the martial ranking in an instant. Then get the top 10 experts on the martial ranking to teach that arrogant brat a lesson. That Gu Yu is only 16 or 17 years old. Putting aside the fact that he might not be able to win, even if he were to win, it would be equivalent to losing. If he were to lose, it would cause the reputation of our Tianwu Academy to plummet. But this time, there are quite a few talented new students in our academy. There are, but no matter how strong the new students are, their cultivation is still limited. I'm afraid that they won't be able to compete with that young man named Gu Yu. Within Tianwu Academy, all of the students were discussing the challenge tomorrow. They wondered who would be able to contend against that young man named Gu Yu. The name Du Xiaofu that had been spreading like wildfire recently was finally suppressed by Gu Yu's name. Dusk was approaching and the sun was setting in the west. Red clouds spread across the sky, covering half of the sky. The canopy of the trees swayed and the mountain peaks stretched far and wide. Big sister. In a room in a courtyard on a mountain peak, a slightly plump young man and a short-braided young lady happily surrounded a lady dressed in orange. The two of them were the first place of the freshman assessment, Qing Yan, and the fourth place, Qing Chao. They were the second princess and third prince of the Stone Dragon Empire respectively, and had an illustrious status. Second sister, third brother, how are you doing in Tianwu Academy? As the first princess of the Stone Dragon Empire, as well as the elder sister of Qing Yan and Qing Chao, she was also a direct disciple of the Divine Light Court. She was famous in the surrounding empires. Qing Yan had a delicate and pretty face. She looked to be around 16 to 17 years old, and she bore some resemblance to the chubby young man. Under her long eyelashes, her large eyes sparkled like black gems. She looked at Qing Xingnan and said, Tianwu Academy has an extraordinary foundation, especially in the Tianwu Talisman realm. If you can comprehend it well, your achievements will be extraordinary. Of course. I noticed that second sister has improved a lot in such a short time, Qing Xingnan said with a smile. Hearing those words, Qing Chao's face was filled with displeasure. He looked at Qing Xingnan and said, Big sister, there's really nothing good about Tianwu Academy. I really don't know why Emperor Father wants me to come here. Why don't you go back and tell Emperor Father to let me join the Radiant Shrine? I also want to become a disciple of the Divine Light Court. Qing Xingnan raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the chubby young man. His lips curled up as he said, Third brother, Emperor Father naturally has his reasons for sending you to Tianwu Academy. The Tianwu Talisman realm in Tianwu Academy is extraordinary, and even the experts of the Divine Light Court have mentioned it many times. If you comprehend it well, you will achieve great things in the future. Tianwu Academy. I hate Tianwu Academy. Qing Chao's face was ashen. When he thought of the humiliation he suffered when he first arrived at Tianwu Academy, displeasure welled up in his heart. As the third prince of the empire and the future ruler of the Stone Dragon Empire, he didn't expect to be humiliated the moment he arrived at Tianwu Academy. He couldn't get over it. Looking at Qing Chao, Qing Yan could only sigh inwardly. She then looked at Qing Xingnan and asked, Big sister, I heard that a young man named Gu Yu from the Divine Light Court is going to challenge Tianwu Academy tomorrow. Is that true? Qing Xingnan's eyes flickered and she smiled. She said to Qing Yan, There is indeed such a thing. Junior brother Gu Yu possesses the spiritual pulse physique and is extremely talented. At the age of 17, he has already reached the great circle of the pulse spirit realm. In the entire Divine Light Court, there are less than 3 people with such talent. Therefore, he specially came to Tianwu Academy to spar with them. Spiritual pulse physique, great circle of the pulse spirit realm at the age of 17. Hearing this, Qing Yan and Qing Xingnan were dumbfounded. Gu Yu's talent was terrifying to the extreme. They felt that their talents weren't bad, but compared to Gu Yu, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. Second sister, you are the champion of this year's freshman assessment. However, if you wish to challenge Gu Yu tomorrow, you can forget about it. You are still unable to test him, Qing Xingnan said. Qing Yan looked at Qing Xingnan, and her eyes flickered. She said, Du families Du Qi and Du Yinxin are both here. Will the academy arrange for them to take action? I'm afraid that they won't be able to do anything to Gu Yu. Du family. Qing Xingnan's eyes flickered and she said softly, The people from the Du household are also here. I believe that Tianwu Academy won't arrange for the Du family to take action. Dusk. Silver-gray dew enveloped the mountains. Greetings to fourth uncle. In the courtyard, a young man and a young lady stood together and respectfully bowed to a burly man with distinct facial features. The burly man looked at the young man and young lady with his deep eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Du Qi Yunxin, how are the 2 of you doing in Tianwu Academy? The young man was called Du Qi. Hearing this, a smile appeared on his handsome face. He stood there quietly, but his aura was noble and elegant. Coupled with his tall figure, it made him appear even more handsome. He said, I have gained quite a lot. The Tianwu Academy's Tianwu realm is extraordinary. Then you must comprehend it well. There is no weakling in my Du family. The burly man smiled and looked at the young lady. He asked, Yunxin, what about you? The young lady looked to be around 16 or 17 years old. Her name was Du Yunxin, and she had a rosy face. Her eyes were watery and her voice was gentle as she replied. Replying to fourth uncle, I have gained quite a lot as well. That's good. Your parents have instructed me to tell the 2 of you to cultivate well and reach the Meridian Spirit Realm as soon as possible. The burly man said. Yes. The 2 of them nodded. After which, some ripples flashed across Du Qi's pair of clear eyes, which were so gentle that it seemed as if water was about to drip out of them. His fine long hair covered his smooth forehead and drooped down to his thick and long eyelashes. After seemingly pondering for a while, he opened his mouth and asked, Fourth uncle, big brother, second brother and the others, what level are they at now? Their progress is extraordinary. If you want to catch up to your big brother and second brother, you will have to put in more effort. The burly man smiled. Then, he looked at the 2 of them with his deep eyes and asked, I heard that there is a Du Xiaofu in Tianwu Academy. Have the 2 of you paid attention to him? Hearing this, Du Qi's clear eyes flickered and he replied, I did pay attention to him. That brat isn't simple, but I can't determine anything for the time being. Du Yunxin's brows slightly widened. She looked at the middle-aged man and asked, Fourth uncle, is the clan investigating him as well? There are some matters that the clan has to investigate. The burly man replied. Night fell. The sky was shrouded in darkness. The distant mountains, the nearby trees, and the mountain range were all hazy. In the courtyard and hall, bright pearls shone brightly. At this moment, all the elders of Tianwu Academy were frowning. When they thought of the challenge from the Divine Light Court tomorrow, all of them felt dejected. It is said that Gu Yu has a spiritual pulse physique and is terrifyingly talented. He is only 17 years old, but he has already reached the great perfection of the pulse spirit realm. Even in the entire Divine Light Court, there are no more than 3 people with such talent. He is already an invincible existence among those of the same age. None of the new students in the academy can match up to him. Elder He Hu said with a grave expression. A spiritual pulse physique. Many of the elders were shocked when they heard this. That kind of talent only existed in legends and was 1 in a billion. It was a talent that surpassed ordinary martial pulse physiques. Anyone with a spiritual pulse physique was heaven-defying, and ordinary people couldn't be compared to them. Gu Yu is too powerful, and the Divine Light Court is doing this intentionally. Putting aside whether the top 10 on the martial ranking can win, even if they win, it will be an unfair victory. Even if they win against Gu Yu, they will lose the reputation of our Tianwu Academy. However, I'm afraid that none of the new students are qualified to fight, Elder Shangguan said with a grave expression. Among the freshmen, even though Du Qi, Du Yunqin, Chen Yan, and the others are talented, they are still far from being able to match up to Gu Yu. Furthermore, the 8 king manners have come together this time around. If we were to allow them to make a move, it would make our Tianwu Academy look weak, and it would be inappropriate for us to do so, Elder Sun said. Then, who should we send for the challenge tomorrow? If our Tianwu Academy doesn't even have a single person, our reputation will suffer a huge blow if news of this were to spread, Elder Liao said. No matter who we send tomorrow, it will be difficult for Tianwu Academy to step down. The Divine Light Court has come prepared, Morongxi said with a sigh. In the hall, the elders fell silent and shook their heads inwardly. Suddenly, Elder Shangguan looked at everyone and said, Do you guys think that if Du Xiaofu was here, he would be able to fight against Gu Yu? Swish swish. When everyone heard this, their eyes flickered and they looked at each other with splendor in their eyes. You don't say. If that vicious and hateful brat was here, he might really be able to stop Gu Yu. It's said that that brat Du Xiaofu did not suffer any losses in Liu Xiao's hands. A blue-clothed old elder in his 60s said. I feel that if Du Xiaofu was here, he would be able to fight against Gu Yu, a yellow-clothed elder said. His eyes flickered with splendor, and the aura that he had concealed revealed a powerful aura. Chapter 261. It's useless to talk about this now. We still don't know if that brat Du Xiaofu is dead or alive. He's still with Elder Zhou. If that brat really did eat the green bamboo spirit fruit, I'm afraid that by now, Elder Zhou has already. Mu Rongxi did not continue. The gazes of the numerous elders trembled. If that brat called Du Xiaofu had really eaten Elder Zhou's precious green bamboo spirit fruit, then he would most likely have already been refined by Elder Zhou. Rumble! Within the scorching space, the rumbling sounds became more and more shocking. Raging flames engulfed the area, whistling as they spread like a storm. Crack, crack! As the runes spread around the 3-legged medicinal cauldron, quite a few cracks once again appeared on its surface. Shockingly hot flames spread out and golden light shot out from within. If it were not for Elder Zhou suppressing it, the medicinal cauldron would have already been smashed to pieces. What's going on with this brat? He seems to be using the core fire to refine his body. Too savage. Elder Zhou sat cross-legged in front of the medicinal cauldron, his body shrouded in dazzling light. His deep star-like eyes were filled with shock. Using the core fire to refine one's body. Just how shocking and unyielding was this? That youth was practically savagely torturing himself. Spying on everything within the medicinal cauldron, it was not difficult for Elder Zhou to know that if it was anyone else, this would definitely be a form of torture, an unbearable refinement. However, for some unknown reason, Du Xiaofu had a great heart, great perseverance, great talent, and great willpower. Even in the face of this kind of pain that ordinary people could endure, he had never retreated. He had always been training himself and forging a better physical body. In Elder Zhou's spying, it had already been an entire 11 days. Within the medicinal cauldron, Du Xiaofu had absorbed an entire 11 days' worth of core fire to refine himself. If it was an ordinary martial lord, Elder Zhou could guarantee that he would have long been burnt to ashes. Rumble! The medicinal cauldron shook even more, violently smashing apart. Elder Zhou was shocked. Du Xiaofu's physical body inside the cauldron was too terrifying. He had never heard of anyone who would train their physical body in such a brutal manner. It was originally a procedure for refining pills, but now it was being used by that brat to train his body. Hulala! Inside the medicinal cauldron, Du Xiaofu's body was enveloped by the raging flames from the earth's core. The faint golden talisman patterns on the surface of his body flickered. In 11 days, Du Xiaofu had refined the golden feather to the extreme. Metamorphosis, it had been undergoing metamorphosis all along, as if it was missing something. Amidst the faint golden talisman patterns, a hazy light seemed to curl up like mist. A terrifying aura was spreading, transforming, and awakening. It was as if Du Xiaofu had unwittingly awakened something in the cultivation method of the golden-winged great ping in his body. A hidden aura was gradually awakening. Boom! Du Xiaofu stood in the space of raging flames and continued to train. The aura on his body became more and more domineering, causing people to tremble and sweep through everything. Time slowly passed. After so many days of refining, Du Xiaofu felt that he did not even need the help of the mysterious energy in his body to fear the raging flames from the earth's core. Under the tempering of the raging flames from the earth's core, his body became more and more valiant. Golden light filled the air, and under the glow of the flames, his body was like a beautiful jade. In Du Xiaofu's heart, he felt that he was about to transform to a new level. However, for the past few days, he had been missing something and had not reached the peak. Therefore, Du Xiaofu persevered. That feeling still existed. Du Xiaofu could clearly feel that if he could reach the peak of the refining of the golden feather and continue to evolve, he would definitely reach a powerful level. Even the golden-winged great ping race would not be able to reach that level of strength easily. Therefore, Du Xiaofu persevered. Only by persevering would he be able to become stronger. If he wanted to be stronger than others, he would have to persevere and work harder than others. Train, refine, forge. Du Xiaofu continued to refine every inch of his muscles, bones, completely refining all the impurities. It was like a process of derivation. During this process, his body became more crystalline, more tenacious, and the golden light became purer. Within the golden light, the domineering aura became more and more vast, as if it could suppress the world. As the tempering continued, Du Xiaofu felt that the new level was getting closer and closer. It was so close that it was as if there was only a thin layer of paper between them. Break! Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. He was completely focused and used all the strength in his body. With the stomp of his foot, the endless golden talisman runes around him soared into the sky. Creak! In this instant, the talisman runes on the surface of Du Xiaofu's body shattered inch by inch. His aura instantly dimmed, as if all the life in his body had suddenly disappeared. The golden light also gradually dimmed, before completely disappearing. Why did this brat fail? Did he fail? Elder Zhou, who was seated cross-legged, was suddenly startled. He could clearly sense the aura within the medicinal cauldron. Walala! In this instant, Du Xiaofu seemed to have become a dead person. There was no aura at all. The roaring earth core raging flames within the medicinal cauldron howled and surged at this instant. In an instant, they violently swept towards Du Xiaofu, intending to burn Du Xiaofu into ashes. At this moment, Du Xiaofu, who seemed to have lost all life, was wrapped in flames. Even without the help of the mysterious power within his body, he was still completely unharmed. His body, which seemed to be completely devoid of life, was like real gold that did not fear being refined by fire. After which, the talisman runes on Du Xiaofu's body that had just completely shattered began to flicker once again. It was as if he had been reborn, becoming even more powerful. Boom! Du Xiaofu's entire body shook. It was brimming with life as a faint golden light rushed towards the sky. In an instant, in a spurt of energy, he charged towards a new level in an unstoppable manner. At this moment, Du Xiaofu felt that he was continuously becoming stronger and climbing. This feeling was as if he had already surpassed the golden-winged great ping. I understand now. Destruction before establishment, reaching the true ping. This is the true ping realm. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. Golden talisman runes flickered in his eyes, sharp and intimidating. Within his eyes, there seemed to be the illusory figure of a golden-winged great ping flapping its wings and soaring. Coo! Behind Du Xiaofu, the talisman runes condensed into the illusory figure of a golden-winged great ping. In one moment, it flapped its wings and soared into the sky. In the next moment, it seemed to be looking down on all living things. It changed unpredictably, as if it was sentient. It formed a resonance with Du Xiaofu. Rumble! Within the medicinal cauldron, the sound was like thunder. Following which, the medicinal cauldron, which had already begun to crack, finally cracked completely under Du Xiaofu's final attack. In an instant, a golden light accompanied by the blazing flames of the earth's core swept out. Walala! Then, Du Xiaofu's body, wrapped in a faint golden light, walked out. An incomparably domineering aura leaked out. It was as if the golden-winged Great Peng had descended. It carried the domineering will of the golden-winged Great Peng, as if it could suppress all living things. As the medicinal cauldron cracked open, the raging flames engulfed it. Elder Zhou sealed the raging flames of the earth's core with a seal in his hand and rapidly retreated. The golden-winged Great Peng. This brat, is he a human or a peng? Then, sensing the aura on Du Xiaofu's body, Elder Zhou was shocked. At this moment, it was as if a real golden-winged Great Peng had descended. Walala! The light around his body gradually disappeared. Du Xiaofu began to return to normal. Under his sharp eyebrows, a faint golden light flickered in his clear eyes, which immediately became deep. Huff! A mouthful of turbid air was spat out from his abdomen. Feeling the changes in his physical body, Du Xiaofu's face revealed a smile. This was a qualitative breakthrough and leap. Compared to 11 days ago, it was like 2 levels. There was a huge difference. He never thought that he would be able to obtain such benefits this time. Brat, are you a human or a beast? Elder Zhou curiously stared at Du Xiaofu's rather messy hair. His deep gaze was closely fixed on Du Xiaofu's body, sizing him up. Of course I'm a human. It's just that I occasionally receive some benefits from the golden-winged Great Peng. That's why I'm like this, Du Xiaofu said to Elder Zhou. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's tone towards Elder Zhou was much more polite and respectful. During the 11 days in the medicinal cauldron, Du Xiaofu could feel that the old man in front of him had always been taking care of him. As he grew stronger, the temperature of the earth's core flames increased. It could be said that the old man had completely cooperated with him in tempering his physical body. Du Xiaofu could feel that although the old man in front of him looked as if he wanted to chop him to pieces, in reality, he had always been secretly taking care of him. Strange, truly strange. Elder Zhou continuously looked at Du Xiaofu, then stared closely at Du Xiaofu. He said, Brat, you received benefits from me. Shouldn't you also agree to a condition of mine? Senior, please speak. Du Xiaofu nodded. He had indeed received great benefits from the old man in front of him. Elder Zhou looked at Du Xiaofu and said, You ate my mighty Huang pill and destroyed my medicinal field. I want you to pay for it, and then add some interest. You have no problem with that, right? No problem, but I'm afraid I can't pay for it at the moment. Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. He really couldn't afford to pay for the mighty Huang pill now. Elder Zhou said, Don't worry, I'm not asking you to pay for it now. Naturally, there's no problem. Du Xiaofu thought for a moment, then nodded to Elder Zhou. Chapter 262. Elder Zhou continued. Besides, your father also took one of my Huangji pills. The son pays the father's debt. You don't have any objections, do you? Hearing this, Du Xiaofu instantly frowned. His dark eyes looked towards Elder Zhou and said, Even blood brothers should settle their debts clearly. My father is still here, so his debts should naturally be paid by him. I'm afraid that even if I helped him, I wouldn't be able to pay it back. Hearing this, Elder Zhou's gaze towards Du Xiaofu could not help but twitch, and then he said, Indeed, like father, like son. An indescribable smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face, but he did not say anything. Can you put on some clothes first before you speak? Suddenly, Elder Zhou said to Du Xiaofu. Fuck. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu discovered that the purple robe he had been wearing had long been burned to ashes in the medicinal cauldron. He had actually been chatting with this old man all this time. His entire person instantly felt unwell. Chi! Within Du Xiaofu's palm, a small pagoda and a palm-sized bronze mountain peak rock appeared. From within the small pagoda, a qianquan bag was thrown out. From the qianquan bag, he fished out a blue robe and put it on. The few clothes in the qianquan bag were mainly purple, and this blue robe was a rare sight. This small pagoda seems extraordinary. Brat, you destroyed one of my medicinal cauldrons, so how about you compensate me with this small pagoda? At this moment, Elder Zhou's gaze was tightly fixed on the small pagoda in Du Xiaofu's hand, a look of curiosity in his eyes. Elder, that won't do. In the future I'll just compensate you with a medicinal cauldron. Du Xiaofu instantly kept the medicinal cauldron and mountain peak rock in his hands, afraid that the old man before him would have designs on the small pagoda and small yao. Du Xiaofu knew that although his physical body had improved a lot this time, it was still far from enough to be compared with the terrifying old man in front of him. Then forget about it. You destroyed my medicinal field, destroyed one of my Huangji pills and medicinal cauldrons, and even received benefits from me. You owe me a lot. How about this, including the interest, you'll have to pay me a total of 10 Huangji pills in the future. Elder Zhou calculated and said, 10? Du Xiaofu's expression turned ugly when he heard that. What? You think it's too much? If you think it's too much, then just return my green bamboo spirit fruit. Elder Zhou said bluntly. That's not it. Du Xiaofu had no choice but to agree. You have to pay it back within 5 years. If you're late by a year, you'll double the amount. Elder Zhou said. Old man, you win. Du Xiaofu glared fiercely at Elder Zhou. You can leave now. I'll send you out of here safely, but be careful. Although I won't settle accounts with you for the time being, the Academy will still settle accounts with you. I've never asked about the Academy's matters. If you're caught by the Academy, I'm afraid you'll be miserable. Elder Zhou looked at Du Xiaofu and said. Du Xiaofu glared at Elder Zhou again and did not say anything. Du Xiaofu felt that he had nothing in common with this old man. Sometimes, a common language needed to be built on a similar level of strength. If there was a huge disparity in strength, there would definitely be no common language. Elder Zhou, what's going on? Elder Sun Nurongxi, Elder He Hu, Elder Shangguan, and the other elders came early in the morning. Looking at the broken medicinal cauldron and the mess around them, they looked at each other in confusion. Du Xiaofu, that brat, ran away. I originally planned to refine that brat like the green bamboo spirit fruit. Who knew that brat would destroy my medicinal cauldron and escape when I wasn't paying attention? Elder Zhou said to everyone. What? Hearing this, everyone's eyes suddenly trembled. To be able to escape from Elder Zhou's hands, that Du Xiaofu was really not simple. Elder Zhou, do you know which direction that brat ran to? Elder Sun suddenly asked. All the elders were also waiting for Elder Zhou's answer. They deliberately came early in the morning to try their luck and see if they could find Du Xiaofu, that ferocious brat, at Elder Zhou's side. If they could let that ferocious brat deal with Pan Yu, it would be fine even if they could forgive some of that brat's sins. Originally, they were treating a dead horse as a living horse. They didn't expect that they would really come early in the morning and really get news of that brat Du Xiaofu from Elder Zhou. Elder Zhou turned his head, looked at Elder Sun and the others and said, Are you deliberately angering me? If I knew where that brat ran to, would I still be here? Hearing this, everyone's eyes suddenly became embarrassed. Elder Zhou, then we'll go and capture that brat. After Elder Sun finished speaking to Elder Zhou, he immediately motioned for everyone to leave. After a moment, clear light poured down, and the sky became brighter and brighter. Everyone, now we can only go and find that brat. If we find him, we'll have a good talk with him. As long as he can defeat that Pan Yu, we'll give him some credit for the crimes he committed in the Academy. On the bluestone corridor, Elder Sun said to the many elders around him, There's not much time left. With that brat's ability, who knows where he's hiding? Even if it's us, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find him in a short period of time. A long-robed elder sighed. Elder Sun looked at the brighter sky and said, Everyone, let's search first. Regardless of whether we find him or not, we'll meet in the Peace Plaza in 2 hours. If we can't find that brat at that time, we can only accept our fate. Huff. In the morning, Du Xiaofu deeply breathed in the fresh, frosty air of the mountain range. He felt invigorated, and his entire body was filled with energy. Bastard, he almost burned me to death. In Du Xiaofu's arms, the little demon's voice sounded. It had also been burned in the medicinal cauldron for 11 days, and had suffered for 11 days for nothing. One could imagine how it felt. You secretly ate the green bamboo spirit fruit, but that person didn't make things difficult for you. That's strange. Jin Qingquan's voice sounded as he spoke to Du Xiaofu. I owe him a favor. Du Xiaofu nodded. No matter what the reason was, the other party didn't make things difficult for him, but he really did owe him a favor. It won't be too late to repay the favor you owe him when you have the strength in the future. After Jin Qingquan finished speaking to Du Xiaofu, he immediately said, Be careful, there's someone up ahead. Du Xiaofu's gaze immediately turned to the front. At this moment, under the slightly brightening sky, there was a faintly discernible figure of an elder sitting on a hillside. That figure seemed to give off a sense of déjà vu. It seems like an acquaintance. Du Xiaofu's gaze moved slightly, and he slowly walked over. When he released his mental energy to probe, he didn't sense any aura fluctuations from the other party's body. When Du Xiaofu was able to clearly see the other party, his eyes widened. He didn't expect it to be an acquaintance. The other party was an elder in his 60s or 70s. He had thick eyebrows, big eyes, a big nose, and a wide mouth. His hair was messy like dried grass, and his face was rather pale. Only his eyes were bright, but they gave off a lifeless feeling. It was the elder that he had met at the back of the mountain, and he had spent his entire life in Tianwu Academy. The elder was also looking at Du Xiaofu. He hadn't shaved for a long time, and his face was like a barren land filled with grass. Coupled with the wrinkles on his face, if one suddenly looked at him, they would really think that he was a savage. When the elder saw that it was Du Xiaofu, a smile appeared on his face as he said, Brat, it's you again. Are you slacking off again? Hee, I'm running for my life. Du Xiaofu smiled. He didn't know why, but when he saw the elder, he felt a special sense of familiarity. After which, he looked at the elder with a puzzled gaze and asked, Why are you here so early? This place should be quite far from the chore house. How did you get here? Actually, it's not that far. I have some status in the academy, so I have a demonic beast as a mount. The elder smiled and turned to look at Du Xiaofu. He smiled and said, Why are you still here? Aren't you going to watch the show today? What show? Du Xiaofu asked. Don't tell me you don't know. The elder looked at Du Xiaofu and said, Today, Gu Yu from the Divine Radiance Court challenged a student from Tianwu Academy. It's quite a show. Divine Radiance Court. Du Xiaofu's gaze flickered. He then shook his head and said, I'm not interested. I don't usually watch shows. Hearing this, the elder's gaze flickered and he smiled at Du Xiaofu. That's true. As a nominal student, there's nothing much for you to watch. Anyway, you won't be able to help much. However, I'm afraid that the students from Tianwu Academy won't be able to contend against him. It's said that Guyu is too powerful. Yesterday, his flood dragon mount severely injured a senior student by the name of Du Xiaoman. Uncle, what did you say? Du Xiaofu's expression changed drastically as he stared at the old man. His eyes, which were filled with indifference a moment ago, were now filled with a chilling intent. He hurriedly asked the old man, Uncle, are you saying that Du Xiaoman is seriously injured? That's right. I didn't hear it wrong. She was injured by the flood dragon mount of that young man by the name of Guyu. However, I heard that with the care of the Academy's medicinal talisman masters, that young lady is fine. However, that young man by the name of Guyu isn't willing to give up. He said that he wants to challenge a student from Tianwu Academy today. After the old man finished speaking, he slightly straightened his back and stretched. After which, he looked towards Du Xiaofu and said, Kid, why are you in such a hurry? Could it be that you want to deal with that youth called Gu Yu? That's right, that's my intention. Du Xiaofu could no longer remain calm. Someone actually dared to injure his sister, and to such a severe extent. How could he let that person off? No matter who that lad was, he had to take revenge first. It's said that the young man by the name of Gu Yu isn't easy to deal with. If you want to go, you have to be careful. The elder's beard moved slightly. He then looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled. Lad, actually, I already know who you are. Recently, your name has been spreading throughout the academy. There are even portraits of you everywhere. You're Du Xiaofu, right? Chapter 263. Du Xiaofu looked at the elder and nodded, not denying it. Are you really going to deal with that young man called Gu Yu? Right now, the enforcers of the academy and the elders of the academy are all hunting you down. If you appear, I'm afraid they will surround you as well, the elder said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. If he were to appear, he would definitely attract the attention of the enforcers of the academy and the elders. How about I give you an idea? The old man looked at Du Xiaofu and said with some confidence. I'm an old man here. Generally speaking, my methods are very effective. Then I'll have to trouble you, uncle. Du Xiaofu naturally wouldn't reject the elder's kind intentions. You have points on you, right? The elder smiled at Du Xiaofu and said, You can't have too few points. Otherwise it would be useless. Du Xiaofu nodded and said, I do have some points. It shouldn't be too little. Du Xiaofu remembered that he had quite a lot of points on him. After all, he hadn't collected so many points from the people on the martial roll for nothing. Hearing this, the elder smiled and nodded. Then it's fine. When the time comes, you can go to a place. As long as you go there, the elders of the academy won't be able to do anything to you. You can also go into seclusion to comprehend. No one will be able to do anything to you. Early in the morning, the first rays of the rising sun shone over the land. The Peace Square was the most lively place in Tianwu Academy. This square was called the Peace Square, but it wasn't peaceful at all. Usually, all the challenges between the students would be held in the Peace Square. Many students had already gathered in the spacious Peace Square early in the morning. As time passed, the number of students continued to increase. The hustle and bustle of the crowd spread out in all directions along with the clamor. Today was the day that an outsider from the Divine Light Court challenged Tianwu Academy. This kind of challenge had huge implications. Moreover, almost all the students of Tianwu Academy knew how terrifying the challenger was. The young man called Gu Yu was extremely powerful. Just a demonic beast mount alone was comparable to a martial lord realm expert. On the Peace Square, many of Tianwu Academy's instructors had already arrived. Many of the experts on the martial roll are here. Other than those who are in seclusion or carrying out missions, the rest are here. Qin Lang, Bing Qianli, Zhu Ding. Most of the experts on the martial roll are here. Tai Wu Lu, Zhang Lu, and the others are here as well. Discussions would occasionally ring out from the crowd. At this moment, many experts on the martial ranking had arrived, which attracted the attention and discussion of many students. Normally, there would be quite a few people, but now, quite a few people had appeared in the surroundings of the square. As time passes, the crowd of Tianwu Yu, the Peace Square, Tianwu Academy. Other than those who were the students, and students, the Atlas's Atlas School, Academy Lucas ends with the Atlas with Feng Lu Xiao's most. Du Amnng, Lan, Shilong's Du, Mu, Long Shaji Ji with the Shemu. The elders Tianatang to the Tianto accompanied the academy to the elders and were accompanying to accompany the accompanied at this moment. Although the elders and instructors looked indifferent, there was a hint of graveness in their eyes. Gong Sun Dao stood quietly with a face full of wrinkles and a sparse goatee. He gave off a sage-like vibe, but if he didn't smile, it would look like the wrinkles on a bitter gourd. Behind Gong Sun Dao, other than the cultivators with extraordinary auras, there were also several young men and women. These young men and women all had extraordinary bearings. Some had sword-like eyebrows, some had burly figures, and some were handsome and noble. However, the aura they emitted gave off an oppressive feeling that was not inferior to some middle-aged experts. Aoo! Just at this moment, a roar resounded through the sky. A colossal creature that was dozens of feet long flew out from a mountain peak not far away. Then, under the gazes of the crowd, a ferocious flood dragon covered in red and green flew through the sky. Light overflowed in all directions, and the scales all over its body covered it. It stirred up waves of air in the surrounding space. Everywhere it passed, the space seemed to be distorted. Is that the profound cloud scarlet flood dragon on the heavenly beast roll? What a powerful demonic beast on the heavenly beast roll! It is indeed terrifying. Around the Peace Plaza, the students of Tianwu Academy raised their heads and looked at the massive profound cloud scarlet flood dragon in astonishment. An astonishing aura emanated from the profound cloud scarlet flood dragon, as if it was the king of all beasts. Dragons were demonic beasts that possessed the bloodline of dragons. Any demonic beast that had the bloodline of a dragon was terrifyingly powerful. On the back of the profound cloud scarlet flood dragon, a 16 to 17-year-old youth stood. His handsome face was perfect, with long eyelashes and eyebrows that reached his temples. His eyes were bright and enchanting, and he was exceptionally handsome. Is he Guyu from the Divine Radiance Court? He is indeed an extraordinary youth. It is said that Guyu possesses the legendary spiritual vein physique, a heaven-defying talent. That's not all. I heard that Guyu is only 17 years old, but he has already reached perfect meridian spirit realm. Perfect meridian spirit realm at 17 years old. That's too terrifying. Discussions broke out in the surroundings and many students were dumbfounded. That youth called Guyu possessed terrifying talent. Since they were able to enter Tianwu Academy, they were naturally talented. However, when compared to Guyu, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. They couldn't be compared at all. What a terrifying youth. What powerful talent. At the edge of the Peace Plaza, Ouyang Shuang raised her eyes and looked at the youth on the profound cloud scarlet flood dragon in the air. A trace of astonishment flashed through her eyes. That youth is too powerful. I'm afraid that no one among the freshmen will be a match for him today. Even those below the top 10 on the martial ranking won't be able to do anything. If those in the top 10 on the martial ranking were to fight, winning would be equivalent to losing. Du Xiaoman, who was beside Ouyang Shuang, said softly. Her face was still pale, but it seemed like she was fine. If Du Xiaofu was here, he might be able to fight. Ouyang Shuang said. I just heard the news from the teacher. Third brother is fine and has already escaped from Elder Zhou. Du Xiaoman smiled bitterly. She didn't know whether she should be happy or not. I also heard the news. He has indeed escaped. Ouyang Shuang smiled bitterly. It's about time. Is there anyone in Tianwu Academy who dares to fight with me? Riding on the profound cloud scarlet flood dragon, Guyu had a playful smile on his lips. He looked at the thousands of Tianwu Academy students in the Peace Plaza with disdain in his eyes. Arrogance flickered in his eyes, and his voice was filled with profound energy. His voice reverberated throughout the Peace Plaza. The Tianwu Academy students looked at each other, feeling indignant. However, no one dared to step forward. Sensing the aura of the profound cloud scarlet flood dragon, everyone knew that they wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack from the demonic beast. Qing Xingnan looked at the Peace Plaza. Her graceful figure attracted many gazes from the surroundings, but her expression remained unchanged and she exuded a noble aura. Seeing that there was no response from the Tianwu Academy students, Guyu looked at the surroundings and sneered. Tianwu Academy, your reputation is overblown. You don't even have anyone willing to accept my challenge. What a joke. In the future you might as well change your name to Coward Academy. His cold and provocative words entered the ears of the Tianwu Academy students, and many of them were enraged. At this moment, the elders and instructors of Tianwu Academy had ugly expressions on their faces. This is too insulting. I really want to go up and teach that brat a lesson. We aren't a match for him. It's fine if we embarrass ourselves, but don't drag the academy down with us. Who do you think you are? I really want to go up and teach that brat a lesson. In the crowd, Zhu Ding's eyes were filled with rage. As a disciple of Tianwu Academy, how could he tolerate such provocative words? Don't be rash. I'm afraid that we aren't a match for him either. That brat from the Divine Radiance Court possesses a spiritual pulse physique, and he is at the perfect pulse spirit realm. Only those in the top 10 of the martial ranking would stand a chance against him, Qin Lang said. At this moment, he was looking at the arrogant young man in the air and gritted his teeth. That brat is still young. Even if those in the top 10 of the martial ranking were to make a move against him, it would still be an unfair victory. If we were to lose, the reputation of Tianwu Academy would be tarnished, Guqin said furiously. Elder son, Gu Yu is too impudent. Doesn't he know that Tianwu Academy has already arranged for students to teach him a lesson today? If Tianwu Academy goes easy on him, I'm afraid that lad will continue to disregard the rules. At the edge of the square, Gong Sun Dao said to Elder Sunday. Hearing those words, Elder Sun and the other elders of Tianwu Academy glanced at one another, speechless. Ha ha! In the air, on the back of the scarlet cloud flood dragon, Gu Yu burst into laughter. It seems like no one in Tianwu Academy dares to accept my challenge. Didn't they say that there's an arrogant martial ranking in Tianwu Academy? Could it be that even those on the martial ranking don't dare to step out? Are all of you cowards? Don't worry, even if you lose, I won't take your lives. At the very most, I will just trample on you. His voice reverberated in the ears of everyone in Tianwu Academy, and it was exceptionally ear-piercing. I can't hold it in anymore. Don't hold me back. Even if we lose, we'll teach that brat a lesson. Don't be rash. If we lose, that brat will definitely humiliate our Tianwu Academy even more. The students of Tianwu Academy in the surroundings of the Peace Square went into an uproar. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they were filled with rage. Even though they knew that they would lose, there were quite a few who wanted to challenge Gu Yu. However, they were held back by the students who were sober. Bastard, I'm willing to give anyone who dares to trample on that brat right now 10,000 points. A robust young man among the crowd flew into a rage. He seemed to be an expert on the martial ranking as well, but he knew that he wasn't a match for Gu Yu. Clenching his fists tightly, he could only gnash his teeth in hatred. What a laughable Tianwu Academy! Cowards who don't even dare to accept my challenge! Such a Tianwu Academy should be disbanded as soon as possible. Glancing disdainfully at the snowy surroundings of Tianwu Academy, Gu Yu sneered on the back of the scarlet cloud flood dragon. At this moment, the elders and instructors of Tianwu Academy were also gritting their teeth and clenching their fists tightly. It was as though they had been slapped in the face, and their faces flushed red. Bastard, where are the top 10 fellows on the martial ranking? Let them chop you into pieces! Such humiliation left the students of Tianwu Academy furious. Many of them were already clenching their fists tightly, and veins were popping out on their foreheads. Roar! Suddenly, the deep roar of a tiger sounded from the horizon. When Ouyang Xuan heard the roar, she raised her head abruptly. The roar came from the king's scaled demonic tiger. At the same time, along with the roar, a loud bellow reverberated across the sky. Who is the bastard called Gu Yu? Step out obediently for this young master. 9 chapters have arrived, and this is still a long chapter. Little Yu, continue writing. The promised 10 chapters will definitely be completed. Chapter 264. Following the loud roar, everyone in Tianwu Academy, regardless of whether they were students, instructors, or even elders, turned their gazes toward the direction where the roar came from. In that instant, the guests from Tianwu Academy also turned their gazes in that direction. On the other hand, the gazes of Gong Sun Dao and the others behind him turned unnatural. What a familiar voice! Among the crowd, Bing Qianli, Zhu Ding, Qin Lang, Guqin, Xiang Tianyin, and the others felt a sense of familiarity from that roar. Roar! The roar of a tiger was deafening, and a violent gale blew across the sky. Right at that moment, a massive flying tiger covered in king-patterned scales appeared before everyone's eyes. It roared savagely. The massive tiger spread its wings and circled in the air. The might of a demonic beast king was intimidating, and the pressure of a demonic beast king spread across the area. Walala! The king's scaled demonic tiger flapped its wings, bringing with it 2 powerful gales. With a few flaps, it appeared in the sky. At this moment, a blue-robed young man was standing on the back of the king's scaled demonic tiger. The young man looked to be around 16 to 17 years old. His youthful face was more resolute and determined than his peers. His eyebrows were as sharp as swords, and his eyes were clear. He exuded a domineering and sharp aura. "It's him! That savage young man is here! Du Xiaofu, it's Du Xiaofu! That savage fellow is here! That savage fellow seems to be here to deal with Guyu." After a short moment of silence, someone recognized Du Xiaofu. During this period of time, Du Xiaofu's name had spread throughout Tianwu Academy. His savage reputation had spread throughout the academy, and his portrait was plastered everywhere. "Why is that fellow here?" Among the crowd, Ouyang Shuang and Du Xiaoman stared at each other in confusion. However, when the two of them saw the young man, the slight frown on their faces disappeared as they heaved a sigh of relief. "It's Du Xiaofu, that savage brat. Why is he here?" Bing Qianli, Xiang Tianin, Zhu Ding, Gui Qing and the rest looked at each other. However, their eyes were filled with joy for some unknown reason. At this moment, the elders and instructors of Tianwu Academy were also overjoyed. Even Elder Liao and Elder Fu had smiles on their faces as they breathed sighs of relief. "Why did that brat come by himself?" Elder Sun, Elder He-Hu, Mu Rongxi and the rest exchanged glances as smiles appeared on their faces. Upon hearing Du Xiaofu's shout, it seemed like the scourge of Tianwu Academy was here to find trouble with Guyu. Just yesterday, all of the elders and enforcers of Tianwu Academy, as well as many seniors, wished that they could capture Du Xiaofu immediately. At this moment, when everyone from Tianwu Academy saw Du Xiaofu, joy appeared on their faces. No one had expected such a turn of events. "He's here!" Among the crowd in the plaza, Qing Yan, Du Qi, Du Yunqin, Cheng Chao, and the other outstanding freshmen had ripples in their eyes. "It's him!" Among the hundreds of guests from Tianwu Academy, a lady in a light blue dress with a slender waist and supple skin looked at the blue-robed young man with ripples in her eyes. Qing Xingnan had the same reaction as the blue-robed lady. Looking at the current king's scaled demonic tiger and the young man on its back, Qing Xingnan's eyes could no longer remain calm. Her delicate hand involuntarily touched half of her perfectly round buttocks. Her eyes fluctuated and her silver teeth slightly clenched. The person who came was Du Xiaofu. When Du Xiaofu heard that his elder sister, Du Xiaoman, was injured, he was naturally worried. When he heard that the person and beast that injured his elder sister were in the Peace Plaza, Du Xiaofu wanted to rush over. However, he didn't expect that he would encounter the king's scaled demonic tiger. After the king's scaled demonic tiger followed Ouyang Shuang back to Tianwu Academy, it had been searching for Du Xiaofu under Ouyang Shuang's arrangements. Coincidentally, they met again. What surprised Du Xiaofu was that the king's scaled demonic tiger seemed to have obtained some benefits during this period of time and had broken through to the pulse spirit realm Nirvana realm. The sudden loud cry in the air caused Guyu to tremble. After which, his gaze firmly landed on Du Xiaofu's body. As he gazed at the youth, who seemed to be around the same age as him, the expression between Guyu's brows became a little colder. Some chilliness flashed across his arrogant eyes as he stepped on the scarlet cloud dragon and asked, "Who are you?" "It's none of your business who I am. Are you that bastard called Guyu?" Du Xiaofu swept his gaze across the surroundings and immediately saw Ouyang Shuang and his elder sister, Du Xiaoman, who stood out among the crowd. His heart relaxed slightly. However, when he saw the pale face of his elder sister, Du Xiaoman, from afar, his gaze landed on Guyu again. This time, his gaze was filled with coldness. "Bastard, you're courting death." Guyu's handsome face was instantly enraged. The other party actually called him a bastard over and over again, not putting him in his eyes at all. How could he not be enraged? Roar! Sensing Gu Yu's anger, the Scarlet Cloud Dragon let out a savage roar. Its vast aura surged like a storm, suppressing the sky. Runes surged and light spread out. At this moment, the aura of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon was enough to make all beasts submit. The weaker disciples of Tianwu Academy felt a piercing pain in their eardrums. The profound energy in their bodies stagnated as they trembled in fear. Roar! The king-scaled demonic tiger didn't show any signs of weakness. It let out a soul-shaking roar and flapped its wings, bringing with it a tornado-like spatial current that swept across the sky. Especially the king-scaled demonic tiger's claws and wings, there was a faint fluctuation of mysterious talisman patterns. It emitted a faint golden light, and there was a domineering sharpness in its fierceness. Under such a tyrannical aura, the king-scaled demonic tiger was able to withstand the pressure of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon despite the difference in their cultivations. In fact, when the tyrannical aura of the king-scaled demonic tiger spread out, the Scarlet Cloud Dragon's ferocious gaze revealed a faint trace of doubt and fear. That king-scaled demonic tiger seems to be extraordinary. It's actually not afraid of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon. Below, there were many vicious gazes that immediately detected the extraordinariness of the king-scaled demonic tiger. Logically speaking, although the king-scaled demonic tiger's cultivation wasn't bad, it was still a big demonic beast on the Earth Beast ranking. If it was compared to the Scarlet Cloud Dragon on the Heavenly Beast ranking, there was still a huge gap. However, at this moment, it was actually able to withstand the pressure of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon's aura despite the difference in their cultivation levels. It was enough to show that it wasn't ordinary. Gu Yu also didn't seem to have expected that the king-scaled demonic tiger on the Earth Beast ranking would be so extraordinary. Originally, he didn't pay much attention to it, but now, he began to pay attention to it. Du Xiaofu looked at the Scarlet Cloud Dragon that Gu Yu was riding. From what the old man said, it seemed that this Scarlet Cloud Dragon was the one that injured his elder sister. The Scarlet Cloud Dragon, a demonic beast on the Heavenly Beast ranking. Then, Du Xiaofu thought of his own body refinement technique. The first level of the body refinement technique required the use of elixirs to temper one's physical body. However, the second level was far more than that. To cultivate the second level, one needed to consume a lot of demonic beast blood essence. Furthermore, one had to swallow the demonic beast blood essence alive and use the most violent energy contained within the demonic beast blood essence to cleanse the bones and marrow. Moreover, it wasn't something that could be done with ordinary demonic beast blood essence, but the demonic beast blood essence on the Heavenly Beast ranking. The higher the demonic beast level, the more effective its blood essence would be for cleansing the bones and marrow. Ordinary demonic beasts wouldn't have any effect at all. Du Xiaofu had always been paying attention to the demonic beasts on the Heavenly Beast ranking. He originally knew that it wasn't an easy task to find the blood essence of those powerful demonic beasts on the Heavenly Beast ranking. With his strength back then, it was simply courting death. But now, seeing a living Scarlet Cloud Dragon in front of him, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but feel excited. Little tiger, step back. As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, he indicated for the king-scaled demonic tiger to hover in the air, before leaping down from the square. He waved his hand for the king-scaled demonic tiger to step back, then raised his head to look at the Scarlet Cloud Dragon and Gu Yu in the air. Looks like you're that bastard called Gu Yu. Hurry up and come down with your Scarlet Cloud Dragon to receive a beating. Du Xiaofu shouted, as if he didn't put Gu Yu in his eyes at all. Gu Yu had never been scolded like this before. Even within the Divine Light Court, he was a peak existence, and deeply loved by the elders of the Divine Light Court. Even his senior brothers and sisters feared and tried to curry favor with him, not to mention his junior brothers and sisters. Bastard, you're courting death. Gu Yu couldn't bear it any longer. He stomped his foot on the Scarlet Cloud Dragon, anger gushing out from his eyes. Ayo! The Scarlet Cloud Dragon roared, a monstrous aura surging from its body, erupting with a terrifying aura. Runes surged on the surface of the huge flood dragon as it swooped down at Du Xiaofu with its ferocious body. Rumble! An ordinary martial marquis wouldn't be able to do anything to a perfect pulse spirit realm scarlet cloud dragon. It spat out runes from its mouth, and a bloody aura gushed out. The runes on the dragon's body shone with dazzling light. Crack, crack. The giant flood dragon swooped down, and before it even got close to the square, with Du Xiaofu as the center, the stone slabs around the square all cracked. Stone slabs flew everywhere, and the sand and pebbles flew everywhere. Cracks appeared on the ground one after another. Such terrifying strength caused the hearts of the surrounding Tianwu Academy students to jump. Their hearts were in their throats for Du Xiaofu. Boom! The dragon swooped down like a bolt of lightning, arriving before Du Xiaofu in an instant. The ferocious mouth was like a bloody hole that wanted to swallow Du Xiaofu whole. Its aura suppressed the sky and filled the earth. Du Xiaofu moved, he raised his head to look at the dark cloud crimson worm that swooped down ferociously from midair. Suddenly, the golden talisman markings on his body surged, and an overbearing, fierce, and terrifying aura exploded out like a torrent. Golden light soared into the sky, and there seemed to be a golden-winged rock flapping its wings. In that instant, Du Xiaofu opened his palm like a fan. Golden runes flickered on his palm as he slapped out. 1. Du Xiaofu's pale golden runes flickered as he slapped out. The runes were densely packed, and they caused the space to tremble, forming an arc-shaped golden dent in space. It was like the wings of a golden-winged rock. In that instant, it was like a bolt of lightning, crushing everything in its path as it slammed onto the ferocious head of the scarlet cloud dragon. A terrifying aura was released, carrying a domineering will. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered with golden light as he looked disdainfully at the surroundings. Just the terrifying aura alone was enough to intimidate the scarlet cloud dragon. 1-1! The golden talisman glowed brightly as if it could suppress everything. The space buzzed with the sound of wind and thunder, and a storm swept through the sky. Ayo, ayo! The scarlet cloud flood dragon screamed miserably. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the head of the scarlet cloud flood dragon, one of the top-ranked demonic beasts on the heavenly beast list, was smashed into smithereens by Du Xiaofu's palm. Crack, crack! The rigid head of the scarlet cloud dragon was smashed into pieces. Its skull was smashed, and its flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Then, its huge body was flipped over by Du Xiaofu's hand, and heavily smashed into the plaza. Everything was like a hot knife through butter, easily destroyed. Boom! The dragon landed on the ground, and the gravel, stone slabs, and dust were all swept up like a tornado. The entire square began to shake violently, and cracks began to spread out into the distance. The energy dissipated, and at this moment, the gazes of the entire plaza were as if they had seen the most terrifying thing. Everyone was dumbfounded. After a long time, no one was able to recover from their shock. The plaza was silent, a deathly silence. It's another big chapter. After 22 hours of continuous writing, I only managed to complete 10 chapters. The first few chapters were very difficult to write, so I wrote slowly. The later chapters were better, so I was faster. But at least I managed to complete 10 chapters. Once again, I would like to thank Commander Qin Tian, Commander Faintly Smiling, and the beautiful vermilion bird for their rewards. In 2 days, Little Yu will arrange another explosion. As for yesterday's fresh flowers, I don't know if it was because Little Yu's update speed was slow, so there were very few fresh flowers. Once again, I would like to ask for fresh flowers to thank everyone. In addition, today's update will probably only be released in the evening. Little Yu needs to sleep first. Chapter 265. The gigantic corpse of the scarlet cloud dragon lay on the messy plaza, causing everyone's hearts to stop beating. The head of a terrifying scarlet cloud dragon, a demonic beast on the heavenly beasts list that was comparable to an ordinary martial lord, had been smashed apart by a single slap from that youth. What kind of unparalleled strength was that? Everyone twitched, their eyes twitched, their facial muscles twitched. Gong Sun Dao and the people behind him were all twitching. The youth who had suddenly appeared had actually killed a scarlet cloud dragon that was comparable to a martial lord. They were unable to accept this fact. How could there be such a powerful youth in Tianwu Academy? The elders of Tianwu Academy were also in disbelief. To think that the savage youth was so terrifying. Then, the faces of Elder Sun, Elder He Hu, Elder Shangguan, and even Elder Liao slowly turned into smiles. It was an absolute smile, as if all the grievances from before had been released in that instant. Is this the son of that bastard Du Tingxian and Ao Tong? Mu Rongxi looked at the slightly skinny youth in the plaza from afar. At this moment, his handsome face also twitched violently as he muttered, "He is indeed savage! Sai, why is this bastard so heavy-handed? Doesn't he know how to be gentler? He is too impolite in front of the guests." Elder He Hu's eyes moved, a slight smile on his face. He then turned to Elder Gongsun Dao beside him and said, "Elder Gongsun, this brat from our academy is still young and does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He does not know how to be disciplined and does not know how to control his strength. Who would have thought that he would be able to kill a scarlet cloud dragon? I wonder if the scarlet cloud dragon is an extremely rare creature in the divine court. If it is, then our Tianwu Academy is willing to take responsibility and not let the divine light court suffer." Hearing Elder He Hu's words, Gongsun Dao's complexion became even more unsightly. His eyes twitched inwardly as he squeezed out a smile on his bitter gourd-like face. "It's all right, they're all still young. It's normal for them to not be able to control their strength. Although the Scarlet Cloud Dragon is not weak, it's nothing to the Divine Light Court." However, Gongsun Dao felt his heart bleeding the moment he said those words. The Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon was a demonic beast ranked on the Heavenly Beasts ranking. How could it not be important? If Tianwu Academy had to pay for it, the Divine Radiance Court would be utterly humiliated. It seems like the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon isn't much to the Radiant Court, but it is still extremely rare to our Tianwu Academy. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble Elder Gongsun to gift a few of them to our Tianwu Academy in the future. Of course, the more the merrier. Elder Gongsun, please don't be stingy. He Hu immediately asked Gongsun Dao for the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon with an embarrassed expression. It didn't seem like he was joking at all. Hearing Elder He Hu's words, Gongsun Dao nearly vomited blood. This He Hu really dared to ask for more Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragons. There were only 2 Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragons in the entire Divine Radiance Court, and both of them were extremely precious. Now that one of them had been slapped to death, his heart was already bleeding, but this bastard still dared to ask for more. All right, there will be a chance in the future, there will definitely be a chance. As Gongsun Dao spoke, he was already gnashing his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to kill Elder He Hu. This fellow was definitely trying to embarrass him on purpose. Then I'll have to thank Elder Gongsun first. Elder He Hu smiled in satisfaction before saying to Gongsun Dao, "Why don't we ask the disciples of the Divine Radiance Court to come down? It wouldn't be good if the disciples of the Divine Radiance Court were to be injured. That brat from our academy is really heavy-handed. It's fine. Gu Yu is arrogant, and he deserves to be taught a lesson." Gongsun Dao's gaze darkened as he squeezed out a smile. "I didn't expect Tianwu Academy to have such an extraordinary student. You have truly broadened my horizons. Elder Gongsun, you might not know about that brat, but he is a right-in student of our Tianwu Academy. He usually does odd jobs in the academy and is extremely mischievous. Recently, we were discussing whether we should expel him from the academy to prevent him from harming the other students." Elder He Hu said with a serious expression. He didn't seem to be joking at all. "If that brat dares to injure the disciples of the Divine Radiance Court, I will definitely teach him a lesson when I return. I will expel him from the academy as a right-in student." The corners of Gongsun Dao's mouth twitched violently, and his eyes burned with rage. He felt as though countless horses were galloping across his heart, and he didn't feel good at all. You want to expel a student who does odd jobs? If you have the ability, why don't you do it? If you dare to expel him, I will immediately tie him up and bring him back to the Divine Radiance Court. There were countless words roaring in his heart, but he forcefully swallowed them back down. He was so aggrieved that he couldn't utter a single word, and he felt as though he was going to suffer from internal injuries. Brilliant, truly brilliant. At this moment, all of the Tianwu Academy elders in the surroundings gave Elder He-Hu a thumbs up in their hearts. To be able to put on airs to such an extent, he was definitely a genius. The only person in Tianwu Academy who had such capabilities was Elder He-Hu. Delightful. Looking at how Gong Sun Dao's face was flushed red from being stifled by Elder He-Hu, all of the Tianwu Academy elders felt an indescribable satisfaction in their hearts. They had definitely vented their frustrations. Scarlet Flood Dragon. Gu Yu's figure appeared before the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon. Looking at its lifeless mount, his eyes twitched, and a chilling intent started to spread across his perfect face. So much Flood Dragon blood, don't let it go to waste. Under the gazes of countless people in the plaza, Du Xiaofu immediately rushed to the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon's shattered head. Standing before the head of the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon, he appeared extremely skinny and small. Looking at the blood flowing out from the head of the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of greed. It was unknown whether it was due to the cultivation technique of the golden-winged great rock, but when Du Xiaofu saw the blood of a demonic beast on the heavenly beast list, it was as though he had seen an elixir. He couldn't help but want to swallow it. "Brat, you must pay the price for killing my Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon!" Staring straight at Du Xiaofu, Gu Yu fixed his gaze on Du Xiaofu. Under the gazes of countless people, he slowly walked towards Du Xiaofu. Junior Gu Yu is angry! In a corner of the plaza, the several youths behind Gong Sun Dao moved. At this moment, Gu Yu was already angry. Gu Yu was a young genius who had recently risen in the Divine Light Court. Among the younger generation, even compared to the various major factions, he was an existence that had reached the pinnacle. Even among the disciples of the same age in the other major factions, it was difficult for anyone to be mentioned in the same breath as Gu Yu. Not long ago, Gu Yu had fought with a cultivator who had truly stepped into the initial stage of the martial marquis realm. Although he did not kill that martial marquis, he had severely injured that martial marquis, causing him to flee in panic. Feeling Gu Yu's gaze, Du Xiaofu slightly raised his head. There were some fluctuations in his clear eyes, and he slowly walked out. Their eyes met. The two youths stood in the center of the plaza, with the corpse of the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon surrounding them as a fierce backdrop. At this moment, the atmosphere of the entire plaza was tense, as if swords had been drawn. Swoosh, swoosh! Around the Peace Square, everyone regained their senses and looked at the two youths. Every student of Tianwu Academy knew that Gu Yu of the Divine Light Court was extraordinary. He possessed the spiritual pulse physique and was at the great perfection pulse spiritual realm. He was definitely an existence that was unreachable among his peers. But at the same time, to the students of Tianwu Academy, the name Du Xiaofu was like a thunderclap that reverberated in their ears. Du Xiaofu was a new student who had just joined Tianwu Academy, and he was only a right-in student. But the things that Du Xiaofu had done were enough to shock everyone. From killing 2 of the seniors and crippling 3 of them, to arresting and robbing the enforcement team, to severely injuring Tai Hu of the martial ranking, and to severely injuring the 4 captains of the martial ranking. It was said that the entire second team of the enforcement team was trampled by Du Xiaofu alone, and even the demonic puppet Li Yunxiao was helpless against him. There were also rumors that Du Xiaofu had destroyed the herb farm of the academy, stole the spiritual herbs that the elders were looking after, and rose to the top 10 of the wanted list in one fell swoop. In the eyes of the students of Tianwu Academy, all of these incidents could only be described with the word savage. At this moment, all of the seniors held their breaths when they sensed the tense atmosphere in the plaza. They knew that the upcoming battle wouldn't be a simple one. It would represent the prestige and reputation of Tianwu Academy and the Divine Light Court. One of them was a famous genius who possessed the spiritual pulse physique. The other was a savage youth who had committed countless atrocities and swept through all of them. The moment he appeared, he killed a flood dragon of the heavenly beast's ranking that was comparable to a martial marquis. At this moment, no one could predict the outcome of the battle between the two youths. Du Xiaofu was savage, but Gu Yu wasn't easy to deal with either. The elders of Tianwu Academy weren't confident either. They knew how powerful Gu Yu of the Divine Light Court was, and that was why they were the most worried. After all, Gu Yu was already at the perfect meridian spirit realm. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu hadn't even stepped into the meridian spirit realm. Gongsun Dao's gaze landed on Du Xiaofu, and his eyelids twitched. If Gu Yu didn't trample on that brat today, his visit to Tianwu Academy would have the opposite effect, and the Divine Light Court would have been humiliated. Of course, in Gongsun Dao's heart, Gu Yu wouldn't lose. That lad from Tianwu Academy possessed savage brute force and terrifying talent. However, if he were to truly compare with Gu Yu, he should still be a little lacking. After all, Gu Yu possessed the spiritual pulse physique. Lao San, teach that Gu Yu a lesson! Amidst the crowd, a quick-witted youth with bright eyes recovered from his shock. He was Sun Ji, Lao San from their dormitory. At this moment, Lao San appeared viciously. Lao San, beat that fellow up. Don't hold back. That Gu Yu is too arrogant. Lao San, beat him up! Zhang Wei and Wu Qifeng were among the crowd as well, and the two of them shouted loudly. Du Xiaofu turned his head slightly and looked in the direction of the three of them. Seeing that Lao San, and Lao San were all there, a smile appeared on his face. Du Xiaofu, beat Gu Yu up. From today onwards, we'll forget about the matter of you snatching my Qiankuan pouch. The 89th ranked on the martial ranking, the captain of the enforcement team, Xiang Tianin, walked out and said to Du Xiaofu. Bing Qianli, Qin Lang, Zhu Ding, Gui Qing, and the other experts on the martial ranking also walked forward. Looking at Du Xiaofu, they shouted. Du Xiaofu, beat that brat up. From today onwards, we'll forget about the matter of you injuring us as well. Du Xiaofu, beat him up. Ferocious youth, beat him up. Let him know the strength of our Tianwu Academy. Ferocious youth, make your move. Don't hold back. Du Xiaofu, beat him up on behalf of the honorary students. In an instant, the Peace Square was filled with a huge commotion. All of the students were in an uproar. All of the grievances and repressed emotions seemed to have found an outlet at this moment. All of the students of Tianwu Academy exploded, and their voices reverberated across the sky like thunder. Little Yu, continue to work hard and beg for fresh flowers. Chapter 266. To think that this brat would be so popular. Murongxi murmured as he looked at the blue-robed youth in the plaza, gently waving his fan. Is this brat Du Xiaofu? Among the guests of Tianwu Academy, all of them had their eyes fixed on him. Within the Du family group, a burly man with distinct facial features was also looking at the blue-robed youth from afar with his deep, dark eyes. As he listened to the waves of voices that were like thunder in the surroundings, the gaze on Gu Yu's perfect and handsome face turned frivolous, and his clear voice revealed a strand of nobility and arrogance that was difficult to conceal. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said coldly, In a while, you'll die a very miserable death, and they won't be able to say another word. Looking at Gu Yu, Du Xiaofu did not say anything, as though he had not heard anything. His clear eyes were calm, but the way he looked at Gu Yu was a little strange. Brat, are you afraid? Make your move. If I make my move, you won't even have the chance to make your move. Looking at Du Xiaofu's calm expression, Gu Yu felt his heart sink. The other party did not seem to care about him at all. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? Du Xiaofu finally raised his head and looked at Gu Yu. Suddenly he could not help but curse. Little bastard, are you done being noisy? Being so wishy-washy like a woman? No matter what you say, I will still beat you up. As Du Xiaofu's voice sounded out, a chilling aura violently gushed out from the perfect young man's face. The gaze in his eyes was as cold as steel, and a vigorous and vast aura suddenly erupted like a volcano at this moment, directly rising and surging, faintly bringing with it the sound of thunder as it resounded. Rumble! The aura was like thunder, whistling through the air. At this moment, Gu Yu's eyes had already turned into the color of lightning. Lightning flickered in his eyes, and a terrifying xianxi accompanied by dazzling runes surged out, as though it could destroy and suppress everything. What a powerful youth, as expected of a spiritual pulse body! Not far from the Peace Square, on a mountain top, there were a dozen or so young men and women standing there. All of them were very powerful, and they stood quietly and solemnly. Spiritual pulse body, heavenly talent, very powerful! Among the dozen or so young men and women, there was an otherworldly woman who spoke softly. Her beautiful eyes shone brightly. Beside the girl, an extraordinary young man exuded an aura that seemed to dominate the sky, suppressing the mountains and rivers. He then said, "The spiritual meridian body is indeed powerful. Hulala!" On the plaza, in a short instant, profound energy surged out explosively from Guyu's body, and it spread out with dazzling talisman markings, causing the surrounding space to practically instantly form an enormous storm. Within the enormous tempest, Guyu's entire body was covered in dazzling divine lights while coldness surged, and a terrifying pressure accompanied him. It caused others to tremble, and even their souls were on the verge of trembling. Boom! The surrounding space warped, and under the terrifying aura, none of the Tianwu Academy students dared to get close to Zhang Xian. It was as though they would be torn to shreds the moment they got close. Under such a frightening pressure, even the elders of the Tianwu Academy couldn't help but turn grave. The pressure coming from the storm of runes shocked everyone. No one dared to believe that a spiritual pulse realm cultivator could be so powerful. Who can withstand the might of a spiritual pulse body? Gongsun Doji and the crowd behind him sneered. Who can withstand the might of a spiritual pulse body? At this moment, all of the Tianwu Academy students held their breaths. The pressure coming from the storm of runes left everyone in the plaza dumbfounded. Du Xiaofu, you have to withstand it! Sensing the terror of the spiritual pulse body, the Tianwu Academy students clenched their fists tightly. That terrifying pressure was something that no one could withstand. Within the terrifying storm of runes, Guyu was like a celestial being. His elegance was unparalleled, and the runes around him were incomparably resplendent. Lightning flickered in Guyu's eyes, and there was an indescribable aura around him. Step by step, he walked toward Du Xiaofu. Connecting with the terrifying storm in the surroundings, he gradually enveloped Du Xiaofu within. Walala! The storm of runes moved, crushing Du Xiaofu within it. Ka 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 ka! At this moment, the ground around Du Xiaofu trembled as though there was an earthquake. Cracks appeared on the ground, and the entire plaza began to tremble. But at this moment, Du Xiaofu's slender figure stood quietly in the plaza. Despite being engulfed by the storm of runes, his slender figure seemed to have taken root, and he didn't move in the slightest. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu's calm and clear eyes were looking at Guyu. Faintly, some golden brilliance began to appear within his eyes. Standing within the storm of runes, Guyu's robes fluttered in the wind. Lightning flickered in his eyes, and a chilling killing intent swept through the air. "Lad, you killed my mount! Today, I won't let you off!" As he bellowed, the chilling intent around Guyu reached its peak. "Chi!" When the last word was spoken, Guyu's figure suddenly shot out like an arrow. It was as if he had passed through space, and his speed was extremely terrifying. In a flash, he had appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. In this instant, Guyu went all out in his attack. His aura was incomparably terrifying, and runes surged around him. Lightning flickered, and a terrifying aura swept through the air, causing the ground around him to collapse. Since the other party was able to kill his mount with a single strike, he had never underestimated the other party. "Divine lightning explosion!" Guyu bellowed as he punched out. Lightning crackled on his fist, and an explosion sounded in the air. It was as though there was nothing it couldn't destroy, causing the space to tremble violently. It was as though the entire space was about to explode from this terrifying punch. How powerful! Ordinary martial lords wouldn't dare to stand against him. All of the spectators were astonished. Guyu's strength was unbelievable. Will Du Xiaofu be able to withstand such a powerful opponent? Everyone from Tianwu Academy held their breaths. Their scalps turned numb, and their hair stood on end. At this moment, the gazes of the guests from Tianwu Academy were trembling in fear. Right at the same time that the terrifying fist flashed explosively towards him, Du Xiaofu finally moved. His clear eyes flickered with lights that were like bolts of lightning as golden light spread out from his body, causing his robe to flutter while talisman markings shot into the sky and swept through the sky. With his body as the center, numerous rifts collapsed from beneath his feet. Boom! In an instant, the thin young man was enveloped by a golden halo. It was as though a golden radiance was gushing out from his body. His aura surged, and it seemed as though a terrifying sovereign was awakening. At this instant, the earth rumbled, and space trembled violently. The thin young man's aura was unparalleled, and his might was unparalleled. Roar! A loud roar sounded from Du Xiaofu's mouth. It was as though a dragon had roared into the heavens, and a divine elephant had trumpeted. In their blurred vision, not many people present were able to see that after Du Xiaofu's roar that sounded like a dragon's roar and a divine elephant's cry came out, the seals in his hands changed and turned into countless fist seals at lightning speed. Like a peacock spreading its tail, they finally condensed into a single fist seal. 1. A deep chanting sound rang out, and inscriptions streaked across the sky. Gu Yu's fist shot out without any intention of dodging. In a flash, Du Xiaofu's fist collided with Gu Yu's fist. Lightning flickered in the fist, and thunder rumbled in the sky. Golden light emanated from the fist, and thunder rumbled in the sky. Hong long long! When the two fists collided, a thunder-like muffled sound of energy suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. The sound waves were as though thunder, shaking one's soul. Walala! In an instant, a terrifying energy ripple swept out like a stormy sea, causing people to be dazzled, and their hearts to rise and fall. They were indescribably shocked. Crack! At this moment, while everyone was still in shock, they heard a muffled cracking sound in the air, as though someone's bone was breaking. Under the gazes of the crowd, the frightening power of Gu Yu's fist smashed into Du Xiaofu's body within the dazzling rune energies present in the arena. However, it seemed to have no effect at all, and even Du Xiaofu's body did not budge at all. On the other hand, the power of Du Xiaofu's fist had caused Gu Yu's fist to start to become paralyzed. When the two fists collided, the fist was the first to shatter. Puff! A golden overbearing force swept out, crushing everything, and fresh blood suddenly flowed out from Gu Yu's mouth. The attacking power of the two Yus were about the same, but in terms of defensive power, there was a difference between heaven and earth. Sizzle sizzle! Before Gu Yu could let out a scream from the intense pain of his broken fist, Du Xiaofu had already made his move again, and another punch blasted out. Du Xiaofu's attack was fierce and fast, and did not allow Gu Yu, who was injured in one move, to have the slightest reaction. Rumble! Du Xiaofu's fist, which was wrapped in surging golden talisman inscriptions, was accompanied by the profundity of the mysterious move as he fiercely smashed it towards Gu Yu's face. The fist rapidly enlarged in Gu Yu's lightning eyes, but he was unable to dodge in time, and was directly smashed in the face by the fist. Puff! As the fist smashed down, the teeth in Gu Yu's mouth spurted out along with fresh blood. Rumble! Just as Gu Yu spurted out fresh blood from the corner of his mouth, his pupils constricted. He was shocked to see Du Xiaofu's hands move like lightning, and his power was like thunder. Fist imprints were endless, and every fist imprint was wrapped in golden talisman inscriptions as it rushed over. Fist after fist was wrapped in talisman inscriptions, and it was like a storm. Bang! 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 In his panic, Gu Yu was only able to dodge a fist imprint, but the following fist imprints were like maggots in a tarsal bone, and he was utterly unable to dodge as they directly landed on his face. As the fist imprints descended, the defensive talisman inscriptions around Gu Yu's body shattered into pieces, and all of them were directly crushed into pieces by Du Xiaofu's ferocious and overbearing force. Every fist that smashed onto the perfect handsome youth's face caused Gu Yu's footsteps to stagger back a step, and the ground beneath his feet turned into fine powder. Every fist that Du Xiaofu smashed onto the perfect handsome youth's face caused the heartbeat of everyone to quicken, and it was as if their hearts were about to be shattered. Crack! Crack! A low muffled sound that was like thunder sounded out, and Gu Yu's face finally emitted a clear cracking sound as his cheekbone was broken. Puff! As the last fist descended, talisman inscriptions wrapped around the fist imprint, causing Gu Yu's mouth to be filled with blood and teeth, and his body subsequently staggered as he was smashed onto the square. Bang! The terrifying force caused the square to tremble and the ground to crack. Du Xiaofu's face was expressionless as he stepped forward. Golden light flickered in his eyes. He was incomparably domineering and sharp. "How dare you hurt my sister!" With a stomp of his foot, Du Xiaofu soared high into the sky, and then fiercely stomped down, ruthlessly stomping on Gu Yu's body. Rumble! The plaza collapsed and the ground caved in. Du Xiaofu's foot viciously stomped Gu Yu, who had been beaten into a daze, into the ground. Gu Yu's blood-curdling screams were finally released at this moment. His miserable screams reverberated around the square. Continue the chapter. Chapter 267. Silence. The entire plaza was deathly silent. The scene in the plaza was like a dream to everyone present. Even if they saw it with their own eyes, they still couldn't believe it. Goo goo. After a moment, everyone recovered from their shock. Looking at the scene in the square, they all swallowed their saliva. Gong Sun Dao and the experts of the Divine Light Court behind him were also trembling in fear. Gu Yu, who possessed the spiritual vein physique, was a peak existence among his peers in the Divine Light Court. Who would have thought that he would be beaten so badly in Tianwu Academy that he couldn't even activate his martial skills, talent, and spiritual vein spirit? Gu Yu was defeated. He was beaten so badly that he couldn't even retaliate. Everyone was dazzled by the scene and couldn't regain their senses. Huff huff! In Tianwu Academy, Elder Sun, Elder He Hu, Elder Shangguan, Murong Shi, Elder Liao, Elder Fu, and the rest looked at each other. After which, they violently inhaled a breath of cold air and were all speechless. This brat is savage. But I like it. Elder He Hu was dumbfounded and couldn't retract his jaw for a long time. Then, he let out a long breath and rubbed his palms in excitement. A smile appeared in his eyes. Qing Xingnan's beautiful eyes were also trembling. She didn't think that Gu Yu would be so powerful. Beside Qing Xingnan was a woman with a slender waist and creamy skin. She was wearing a light blue dress. She was elegant and charming. Her beautiful eyes rippled as she murmured, "It seems that Grandpa's eyesight is quite experienced. Little tiger, collect your prey." On the plaza, Du Xiaofu shouted to the king's scaled demonic tiger that was hovering in the air. Then, he looked at the extremely weak Gu Yu and ignored him. He stretched out his body and took out a qiankun bag from Gu Yu's chest and quickly kept it. Roar! The king's scaled demonic tiger roared and its enormous body flapped its wings, which were 300 feet long. It swooped down with golden talismans wrapped around its sharp claws. 4 of its claws grabbed the corpse of the scarlet cloud flood dragon, then it flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Let's go! Du Xiaofu took a step forward. Like a cicada in 7 steps, he immediately stomped on the ground and soared into the air, landing on the back of the king's scaled demonic tiger. Roar! The king's scaled demonic tiger flapped its wings and flew away as fast as lightning. With a few flaps of its wings, it disappeared from everyone's fearful gazes. That ferocious youth hurried over and miraculously appeared. After violently beating up Gu Yu, he grabbed a dark cloud scarlet jiao from the heavenly beast rankings and directly disappeared. What a ferocious guy, but it's so satisfying. Xiang Tiannin's eyes were as bright as the stars. After sucking in a breath of cold air, a smile appeared on his handsome face. It was as if his blood was boiling. So satisfying, so satisfying, bullshit the genius of the divine court. He's so weak. Body of spiritual veins? What is that? Voices resounded amidst the crowd. The humiliation that the students of Tianwu Academy had suffered previously were vented to their heart's content. The students of Tianwu Academy trembled as they recalled the unbelievable scene from a moment ago. That ferocious youth pummeled Guyu with his fists, and they couldn't help but feel their blood boiling in excitement. Sister Xiaoman, that fellow seems to be here to deal with Guyu for you. He must have learned that you were injured. Among the excited crowd, Ouyang Shuang's large eyes still contained a shocked expression that did not disappear for a long time. Du Xiaoman smiled charmingly. Her red lips curled up as she said softly, I didn't expect third brother's strength to improve so quickly. Who knows how he cultivated? It seems like the disciplinary squad won't be able to capture him in the future. Ouyang Shuang smiled. Her eyes were filled with joy. Junior brother Guyu. Behind Gong Sun Dao, the few extraordinary young men and women regained their senses after their eyes twitched. Their faces were filled with shock as they rushed toward the square. Elder Gong Sun, I'm sorry. I didn't expect the disciple of your esteemed hall to be so weak. If I knew that he would be so weak, I wouldn't have made a move on that lad. Elder He Hu looked at Gong Sun Dao with an apologetic expression. After which, he turned to the teachers behind him and berated. Why aren't you all taking a look at the injuries of the Divine Court disciples? Also, look for that lad Du Xiaofu. How can he be so heavy-handed to a guest of the academy? He must be punished properly. Yes, Elder. At this moment, how could the academy teachers behind him not understand Elder He Hu's words? They immediately nodded in understanding, and those who were concerned immediately rushed to the plaza. Upon hearing Elder He Hu's words, the faces of Gong Sun Dao and the others twitched. They felt so stifled that they couldn't say a single word. Guyu was actually beaten up to the point where he couldn't even retaliate. What else could they say? Elder Gong Sun, junior brother Guyu's injuries aren't light. Elder Gong Sun, please take a look. The youths behind Elder Gong Sun Dao, who had rushed to the center of the square not long ago, hurriedly returned. A well-built and extraordinary youth was carrying the half-unconscious Guyu in his arms. The originally perfect face of the handsome youth was now covered in blood and was swollen like a pig's head. His eyebrows were torn, his eyes were swollen, his nose was crooked, and his mouth was cracked. Even if Guyu's mother were to come, she wouldn't be able to recognize her son. Looking at Guyu's current appearance, Elder Gong Sun Dao and the others from the Divine Light Court felt their hearts bleeding. What a ferocious youth! Guyu is too unlucky! At this moment, the gazes of the various factions were fixated on Guyu's miserable appearance. More than half of the teeth in his mouth had been knocked out, and he was in an extremely miserable state. Du Xiaofu, that scourge, is too ferocious. Even the elders of the Tianwu Academy gasped in shock when they saw Guyu's miserable appearance. Guyu's current appearance was too horrible to look at. Who would have thought that this miserable youth was still that peerlessly beautiful youth? I need to treat my injuries. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. Gong Sun Dao endured the pain in his heart, and said to the elders of the Tianwu Academy. He didn't want to stay together with the people of the Tianwu Academy anymore. Elder Gong Sun Dao, take care. Don't worry, I'll definitely punish that lad so that he won't hit the disciples of the Divine Light Court as he pleases. After Elder He Hu said those words to Gong Sun Dao, he turned to the teachers behind him and said, Men, send Elder Gong Sun Dao off. There's no need to send me off. Gong Sun Dao was filled with hatred. He turned around and left, not wanting to talk to He Hu anymore. Elder He Hu, should we chase after that lad? Otherwise, we won't be able to find him in the future. A blue-robed middle-aged man who looked like an elder lowered his voice and asked Elder He Hu. Chase after him. Capture that lad first. Elder He Hu faintly nodded his head before adding, But don't injure that brat, just capture him first. Also, don't let that brat ruin the bones and essence blood of the Scarlet Cloud Serpent. Even if it's a trade, it's fine. The middle-aged elder nodded his head. He signaled to the elders behind him with his gaze before leaving quietly. This chapter is a few hundred words short. Little you will fill it up tomorrow. Let's go eat first. Chapter 268. In the mountain range behind Tianwu Academy, There was a mountain peak that was not very tall, but it was extremely steep and precipitous. The mountain was lush and verdant, with clear streams flowing through it. When several figures landed on the mountain peak, their expressions changed. There were many bloodstains and broken bones on the mountain peak, and it was not hard to tell that these bones came from the Scarlet Cloud Dragon. Roar! When the last piece of dragon flesh was swallowed by the king's scaled demonic tiger, a burp sounded from its full belly. There was an indescribable satisfaction in the tiger's eyes, as if it had obtained great benefits from the Scarlet Cloud Dragon's flesh. Then, under the gazes of the several figures, it flapped its wings and flew away. That brat knew we were looking for him and ran away again, a middle-aged man said helplessly. That brat ran pretty fast, we were all fooled by him. What a good plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. A middle-aged man in yellow robes laughed bitterly. The bones of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon should have been dug out by that brat, but the blood of the Scarlet Cloud Dragon was wasted. We can refine quite a bit of blood essence from it. A gray-robed old man said with a pained expression, regretting that he did not come earlier. That brat's king-scaled demonic tiger was already extraordinary. Now that it ate the Scarlet Cloud Dragon, it will probably become even stronger. Another middle-aged man said. So. After a while, the several figures could only leave helplessly. The mountain peaks were like waves, layer upon layer. The surrounding mountains were dark and boundless, and the undulating mountain range was like a wave of water. In the middle of the mountain range, there was a huge mountain peak. Even in broad daylight, this mountain peak was like a huge tomb. The mountain peak was continuous and extremely huge. At the bottom of this mountain peak, it was as if an unworldly beast had been buried there. The aura it gave off was enough to make one's heart tremble. The surrounding forest and steep cliffs in the distance gave this mountain peak a frightening sense of tranquility. Around the mountain peak was a large square paved with bluestone. Although this place was usually not very lively, it was still quite crowded. But for some reason, it was extremely quiet today. This is the Heaven Marshal Seal stage? A slightly thin but extremely tall figure appeared in the large square. He looked at the huge mountain in front of him, and sensed an aura that made one's heart tremble. His figure also paused for a moment. The skinny figure appeared to be 16 or 17 years old. He had a resolute face, sharp eyebrows, and clear eyes. If one looked carefully, one could see a faint golden light in the depths of his eyes. A domineering and intimidating aura lay dormant in the depths of his clear eyes. The person who came was Du Xiaofu, who had left the Peace Square. He had planned to come here with the mysterious sloppy old man. From the mustached elder, Du Xiaofu found out that in Tianwu Academy, as long as he entered a place called the Tianwu Talisman Zone, he would be safe. As long as he was in the Tianwu Talisman Zone, even the elders of Tianwu Academy wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The Tianwu Talisman Zone was an important place in Tianwu Academy. It was said that there were countless comprehensions in there, as well as numerous spirit and talisman weapons. It was said that there were even Dao weapons, which surpassed talisman weapons, in Tianwu Academy. In addition, the Tianwu Talisman Zone was a place to comprehend martial techniques, medicine refinement, weapon forging, and talisman formations. In short, the Tianwu Talisman Zone contained all the comprehensions of martial arts and talisman practitioners. But all of this required points. Without points, one wouldn't be able to enter the Tianwu Talisman Zone. After leaving the Peace Square, Du Xiaofu was worried that the elders of Tianwu Academy would make a move on him. Thus, he immediately rushed to the Tianwu Talisman Zone according to the address provided by the mustached elder. It was said that in the Tianwu Talisman Zone, not only could one escape from the pursuit of the academy, one could also comprehend and cultivate. Du Xiaofu also wanted to experience it. Of course, Du Xiaofu wouldn't let go of the blood and secret bones of the Scarlet Cloud Jiao. Du Xiaofu stored the blood of the Scarlet Cloud Jiao into a container in his Qianquan pouch. For the time being, he didn't have the time to cultivate the second stage of the body tempering technique, bone cutting and marrow cleansing. The secret bones of the Scarlet Cloud Jiao were also dug out by Du Xiaofu. The secret bones of demonic beasts on the heavenly beasts list were definitely precious treasures. At this moment, Jin Qingquan's voice sounded in Du Xiaofu's ears. I didn't expect that there would be such an extraordinary talisman formation here. It seems like Tianwu Academy isn't simple either. Talisman formation? Du Xiaofu looked around carefully and realized that there were faint distortions and wrinkles in the space around him. If one wasn't a talisman master, it would be hard to detect the distortions and wrinkles in the space. This isn't just a talisman formation, it's an ancient talisman formation. It should have been set up for a very long time, perhaps over 1,000 years, or even longer. It was the first time he had been shocked by a talisman array in front of Du Xiaofu. He continued, This talisman array is very old. It has been around for more than 1,000 years, maybe even longer. I'm afraid that the person who created this talisman array is no longer around. However, to be able to leave behind a talisman array and maintain it, this level of strength is very terrifying. I'm afraid that at least an 8-star talisman master would be able to do this. I really didn't expect that such a strong cultivator would appear in Sky Martial Academy. 8-star talisman master. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu bitterly smiled. A 5-star talisman master was equivalent to a martial marquis, and a 6-star talisman master was equivalent to a martial king. What kind of expert would an 8-star talisman master be? That level was probably terrifying to the extreme. Even thinking about it gave one an illusory feeling. Right now, he was only a 3-star talisman master. Brother Qingchun, when you were at your peak, did you reach the level of an 8-star talisman master? Du Xiaofu bitterly smiled and asked Jin Qingchun. Child, why are you asking so many questions? I'm afraid that this place isn't simple at all. Go in and take a look. Who knows, it might be as the old man said. You might be able to improve your comprehension inside. Although you have reached the peak of perfect pulsation realm, if you don't improve your comprehension of pulse spirit and other aspects, it will be very difficult for you to break through. Jin Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu. Yes, it's time to properly comprehend. Du Xiaofu nodded. Although he had brutally beaten up Guyu from the Divine Light Court at the Peace Square today, Du Xiaofu was extremely clear that he was able to beat up Guyu because he had used his strong points and avoided his weak points. He had used his strong points to deal with Guyu's weak points. Although he had not yet cultivated the bone-cutting and marrow-cleansing technique, but this time, in Elder Zhou's medicinal cauldron, with the earth core flame, and the enormous amount of spiritual energy, as well as the evil demonic qi that he had absorbed from Liu Xiao, as well as the help of many other factors, he had fortunately stepped into the realm of true Ping in terms of body cultivation. The realm of true Ping was a level that even the golden-winged Great Ping Bird clan would find it difficult to reach. Having reached the realm of true Ping, in addition to his recent breakthrough and refinement, his already terrifying physical body had now reached a terrifying level. With the strength of his physical body, in addition to his recently skyrocketing strength, he had gained the upper hand and suppressed Guyu before he was able to successfully beat him up. That young man from the Divine Light Court today is actually not weak. He even has the body of spiritual meridians. It seems that the Divine Light Court has developed well these years. Jin Qingchun said softly. Although he had not been present today, he could feel that the young man from the Divine Light Court called Guyu did not underestimate Du Xiaofu in the slightest. In fact, he thought highly of Du Xiaofu and gave it his all. However, Guyu was arrogant. His body of spiritual meridians did not allow him to not be arrogant. He should be arrogant. Therefore, Guyu arrogantly wanted to crush Du Xiaofu and destroy everything about Du Xiaofu. He wanted to defeat Du Xiaofu as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. However, Guyu did not know that although the body of spiritual meridians was very powerful, it was definitely enough to be arrogant. However, compared to the golden-winged Great Pin, the body of spiritual meridians did not seem to be enough. Furthermore, he did not even have the chance to unleash the true power and extraordinariness of his body of spiritual meridians in the end. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. He knew very well that if he had exchanged a few more blows with Guyu from the Divine Light Court today, it would have been difficult for him to gain the upper hand. It was still unknown whether he would be able to win in the end. A smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. That young man was indeed very strong. However, he was unable to withstand a single blow. Sometimes, when one had great strength and was able to withstand a few blows, he would not be weaker than those with martial talent. Du Xiaofu thought so. In the end, the path of cultivation was still about cultivating one's own body. If one was not strong enough, how strong could he be when the time came? Even if there was a great opportunity or a great fortune, he would not be able to bear it when the time came. Then, Du Xiaofu asked Jin Qin-chun, "Brother Qin-chun, do you know about the Divine Light Court? I've heard of it before. It's considered very powerful," Jin Qin-chun said. Du Xiaofu did not say anything. Based on his understanding of Jin Qin-chun, if Jin Qin-chun could be considered a powerful force, then it must be very powerful. After a while, Du Xiaofu walked to the front of the huge mountain. Upon closer inspection, he realized that there was an ancient stone gate in front of the huge mountain. It was spotless and exuded an ancient aura. No one knew how many years it had been standing here. The stone gate was wide open, but it was hazy inside. He could not see what was inside clearly. There was only an ancient aura slowly spreading out from the hazy space inside the stone gate. The ancient aura was vast and boundless, causing people to unconsciously feel a sense of reverence from the depths of their souls. "I've received messages from a few readers. I just found out that the notice that was posted on a book review today had been swallowed by the system and had not been displayed. Damn, I reckon that I've caused many readers to wait for an update. I apologize. Little you will update a chapter today to apologize. I'll continue to write." Chapter 269. Your new right? Just take your points card and enter the Seal Realm. Just as Du Xiaofu was sizing up the stone door, a middle-aged man had unknowingly appeared beside it. This man had originally been napping on a large rock beside the stone door. The large rock was like a stone bed, and it was unknown how many years he had slept on it. The surface of the rock was already as smooth as jade. Du Xiaofu looked at the middle-aged man. He looked to be in his 40s, with a head of shoulder-length black hair. His appearance could not be considered handsome, but his face was very clean. It was not that he was clean on the surface, but that when one looked at his face, one would feel that his heart was clean. "Sir, I'm new here and am not familiar with the Heaven Martial Seal Realm. Can you introduce it to me?" Du Xiaofu took out his points card. There were currently quite a lot of points in this card. The middle-aged man was currently napping on the rock. Being harassed by this brat already made him feel somewhat helpless. He had not expected that this brat would actually dare to harass him at this time. He sat up slightly and glared at Du Xiaofu, saying, "Everything about the Heaven Martial Seal Realm, didn't your teacher teach you?" "No." Du Xiaofu shook his head helplessly. Hearing this, the middle-aged man's clean face became somewhat displeased. He glared at Du Xiaofu again and said, "The Seal Realm is divided into the Comprehension Realm, Battle Realm, and the Spirit Realm. Within the Comprehension Realm, there are many individual spaces. Within each space, there will be something you want to comprehend, such as the secret bones of monsters, the evolution of seal formations, the process of refining pills, the method of refining weapons, the cultivation of martial techniques. However, the levels are different, and the points required are also different. After entering the corresponding comprehension realm, the points on your points card will automatically be deducted once every 24 hours. If the points in your points card are not enough at that time, you will be automatically kicked out." Swallowing his saliva, the middle-aged man continued to speak to Du Xiaofu. "The War Realm and the Enlightenment Realm are somewhat different. The Enlightenment Realm is a place for comprehension, while the War Realm is a place for challenges. It also requires points. Everything in the War Realm is an illusion, but it is exactly the same as reality. The difference was that if you died in the battlefield, you would be pushed out of the battlefield. However, the real you wouldn't die, but if the real you were to die once, then you would die for real. The war realm had many levels, but no one knew exactly how many there were. If you can pass through the first level and reach the second level, it will prove that you have the strength of the Scientian realm. In addition, if you can set or break some records in the battlefield, you will be rewarded with points. The higher the record, the more points you will be rewarded. After speaking in one breath, the middle-aged man took a deep breath. It seemed that he hadn't spoken so much in a long time, and his mouth was a bit dry. Du Xiaofu listened to the middle-aged man's words and kept nodding. He could roughly understand what the middle-aged man was saying. The battlefield was like an illusion. Everything inside looked real, but it was all just an illusion. The experience gained from the challenge within the battlefield was real. The benefits were self-evident, not to mention the rewards that could be obtained. As for the enlightenment realm, it was even easier to understand. It was a place for comprehension. Whether it was the war realm or the enlightenment realm, they both required points to enter. Without points, one would be pushed out. Mister, what is the spirit realm? Du Xiaofu knew about the enlightenment realm and war realm, but he didn't know about the spirit realm, so he asked the middle-aged man. Did your teacher teach you anything? The middle-aged man looked at Du Xiaofu suspiciously and continued. The spirit realm is a place for exchange. With a point card, you can exchange for anything you want in the spirit realm. Pills, spirit weapons, blood essence, bones, and so on can be exchanged. Or if you have martial skills and spirit weapons that you don't need, pills, blood essence, bones, and so on can be placed in the spirit realm. At that time, the spirit realm will give you points, and the price will only be higher than outside. It's definitely more worth it than outside. So there's a place like this in the Heaven Martial Talisman realm. When the time comes, I must go and take a look. I wonder if there's any blood essence for exchange. Du Xiaofu murmured. He was also very interested in the spirit realm. It could be said that the spirit realm was an extremely fair trading center. After entering the door, the war realm is on the left, the enlightenment realm is on the right, and the spirit realm is right in front. If you want to enter the talisman realm, you can enter. Don't disturb my rest. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, his gaze lingered on Du Xiaofu for a while before he waved his hand to chase him away. Thank you, mister. Du Xiaofu expressed his gratitude. He was extremely grateful for the middle-aged man's explanation. Swoosh, swoosh. Right at this moment, the sound of wind breaking resounded from the plaza behind him. Several figures flew over at an extremely fast speed. In a few flashes, they had already neared him. Not good, they've caught up. Sensing the sound of wind breaking behind him, Du Xiaofu turned around. Instantly, his expression changed drastically. Du Xiaofu could recognize the figures that flew over. They were all elders of the Tianwu Academy. These elders were naturally here to find trouble with him. Without any hesitation, Du Xiaofu grasped his points card and directly charged into the hazy space behind the stone door. Chi! As Du Xiaofu stepped in, the hazy space behind the stone door rippled with light. There were rune fluctuations, and a spatial crack that resembled a wave of air spread out. At the center of the crack, a dazzling light appeared. An ancient and boundless aura was emitted, and it was astonishingly dense. Stepping through the hazy space, the light was so dazzling that it made one not dare to look directly at it. This gave Du Xiaofu a strange feeling. It was as if he was passing through space and time. It was extremely mysterious. After just 1 or 2 breaths worth of time, the dazzling light before him disappeared and Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. A new space had appeared before him. Du Xiaofu stood at the center. The space rippled and the light was dazzling. Raising his head to look at his surroundings, Du Xiaofu saw 3 spatial ripples on the left, right, and in front of him. They seemed to be 3 spatial doors. On the 3 spatial ripples, Battle Realm, Comprehension Realm, and Spirit Realm, there were rune words that flickered and were faintly discernible. An ancient and boundless aura spread out. The light was dazzling, and it was solemn and majestic. It was as if its dignity was inviolable. It made Du Xiaofu, who entered for the first time, feel oppressed and reverent. There are academy elders chasing after me. Enter the comprehension realm first. Du Xiaofu was afraid of the academy elders chasing after him. He did not have time to size them up and immediately entered the comprehension realm on the right. There seems to be a special aura on his body. Why can't I feel it? This kid seems to be somewhat similar to that kid from back then. After Du Xiaofu entered the stone door, the middle-aged man muttered softly. Immediately after, he lay down on the stone and dozed off. Everything else seemed to have nothing to do with him. Swoosh, swoosh. As Du Xiaofu's figure entered the heaven martial talisman realm, several figures quickly landed outside the stone door. In the end, they were a step too late and did not catch up to Du Xiaofu. We were a step too late. I didn't expect that kid to know to run into the heaven martial talisman realm. Now, no one can do anything to him, a blue-robed elder said bitterly. Once someone entered the heaven martial talisman realm, even they would not be able to affect it. In this place, even elders of the Tianwu Academy were powerless. It's still better than that kid escaping from the academy. Once he uses up all his points, he will naturally be pushed out. At that time, we will be able to catch him like a turtle in a jar, an elder said. A cunning smile flashed across his bright eyes. That kid has plundered quite a lot of points recently. I'm afraid that he has quite a lot of points now. I wonder when he will come out. The blue-robed elder was worried. He knew very well that many members of the law enforcement team had cried in front of him, saying that their Qiankun bags and points cards had all been plundered by Du Xiaofu, and all their belongings had been taken away. That kid was like a poor child who came out from the mountains. As the saying goes, unruly people come from barren hills and turbulent waters. That kid was one of them. That was why he came to the academy and snatched everything he saw. As long as it was valuable, he would not let it go. It was just like how after beating up Gu Yu, the experts of the Divine Light Court watched with pain as the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon's corpse was taken away by that kid. Wait for that kid to come out. Even if he has quite a lot of points, he will come out sooner or later. He can't hide forever, the elder said. Within the heaven martial talisman realm, Du Xiaofu stepped into the comprehension realm. It was as if he saw an invisible corridor in front of him. The surrounding space spat out multicolored light, like the blooming of a comet. The surroundings were dazzling, as if the sky was covered by divine light. Then, within the multicolored light, Du Xiaofu saw many spatial ripples flickering. There were runes flickering on them. With a glance, Du Xiaofu saw many demonic beast illusions on the spatial ripples. Most of them were demonic beast illusions on the earth beast ranking. Walking along the invisible corridor, there were many fist techniques, palm techniques, sword techniques, saber techniques, and other martial techniques flickering on the spatial ripples. There were even illusions of formation flags, spiritual cauldrons, and talisman cauldrons. What a strange and profound place! Du Xiaofu was astonished. Everything around him was extremely profound. Rays of light flickered, illusory and blurry. The aura was ancient and boundless. This place is really not bad. I didn't expect Tianwu Academy to have such a place. From Du Xiaofu's bosom, the small pagoda floated out and mysterious runes spread out. Chapter 270. Afterwards, Jin Qingquan's illusory figure appeared in front of Du Xiaofu, still looking wretched. However, at this time, Jin Qingquan's illusory figure seemed to have solidified a bit. This place is very strange. My innate talent seems to have been somewhat restricted. The little demon also came out from Du Xiaofu's bosom, its illusory eyes looking around with interest. Then, it became somewhat surprised, and finally said, After I become stronger, I should be able to break free of these restrictions. The person at the door just now was not weak. Jin Qingquan said, then looked at the ripples in the surrounding space, and asked Du Xiaofu. This place should be the place to comprehend martial techniques, secret bones, symbol arrays and so on. What do you plan to comprehend first? Du Xiaofu looked around. The places where the beastly figures appeared in the spatial ripples should be related to comprehending the secret bones of those demonic beasts. For those whose meridian spirits were related to this, entering this place to comprehend was naturally the best choice. The places where the runes of fist techniques, palm techniques, and so on flickered were naturally the places where one could comprehend and cultivate martial techniques. The places where the illusory figures of formation flags and spiritual stoves and symbol cauldrons were most likely only useful for talisman masters, alchemists, and symbol masters. Looking around, Du Xiaofu didn't know what to choose for a moment, and also didn't want to try everywhere. According to what the middle-aged man had said, once he entered, his points would be deducted. "Little demon, when will you let me comprehend my meridian spirit?" Du Xiaofu asked the little demon. What he lacked the most at present was still the comprehension of his meridian spirit. His meridian spirit was connected to the little demon, so if he could get the little demon's help, it would naturally be twice the result with half the effort. Of course, Du Xiaofu could also comprehend on his own. With his meridian spirit, he could deduce and comprehend on his own. But now that the little demon was by his side, if he could get the little demon's help, his comprehension of the meridian spirit would be twice the result with half the effort. Therefore, Du Xiaofu believed that there was no need for him to spend more time doing things that he could have done with less time. In fact, the results would be better if he spent less time. "Now you know how to beg me?" Little Yao was very pleased with himself. Glancing at Du Xiaofu, he said, "It should be soon. I've been eating a lot of spiritual herbs recently, and I've obtained quite a lot of benefits. I should be breaking through soon as well. When the time comes, I'll be able to give you some benefits." Hearing this, Jin Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, "Comprehend it first. It's the same for other things. On the path of cultivation, there are many changes, but the same principle remains. As long as you comprehend it, it will be helpful to you." Du Xiaofu nodded. Looking at the flickering phantoms of beasts, array flags, spiritual stoves, and talisman cauldrons in the surroundings, he said softly, "I wonder if there are any secret bones of the golden-winged Great Rock clan here. It would be good if I could comprehend the beast energy of the golden-winged Great Rock clan here." Jin Qingchun glared at Du Xiaofu and said, "You're really daring. If there really are secret bones of the golden-winged Great Rock clan here, I'm afraid that Tianwu Academy would have been razed to the ground by the golden-winged Great Rock clan. The secret bones of the golden-winged Great Rock clan would definitely not be left outside. There are many phantoms of demonic beasts on the heavenly beast rankings here, but not all of them have their own secret bones. It could be that they are only a part of the inheritance of those demonic beasts here, or the aura of beast might extracted from the blood essence of those demonic beasts. But to have so many of them here, this place is already extraordinary. It's enough to prove that Tianwu Academy has an extraordinary past." "Is that so?" Du Xiaofu's brows twitched. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Since that's the case, I'll first comprehend the secret bones and inheritance of the various demonic beasts." Hearing that, Jin Qingchun's gaze immediately fell on Du Xiaofu with astonishment. Then, his gaze fluctuated a few times before returning to normal. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Are you sure? Comprehending too much might not be a good thing. Every technique has its own specialization, and there are many things to comprehend. It's better to concentrate on a few of them. Moreover, you're currently cultivating both the martial Tao and the Tao of Talismans. Comprehending the Tao of Talismans now isn't a bad choice." Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed with a golden light as he said to Jin Qingchun, "As for the Tao of Talismans, with you around, there's no need for me to comprehend the Alchemy Talisman Master and Array Talisman Master. As for the Artifact Talisman Master, I still don't understand anything, so there's no need for me to comprehend it for the time being. Are you trying to flatter me?" Jin Qingchun's eyes flashed with a smile. It seemed that this flattery was very effective. With a bit of pride in his eyes, he said, "You're right. The so-called Heaven Talisman Master is extraordinary. However, when it comes to the attainments of Array Talisman Master and Alchemy Talisman Master, it's enough to have me to guide you. My physical strength is not bad. I'm not interested in the martial Tao of Talismans." Du Xiaofu continued to speak to Jin Qingchun. "As for the martial Tao of Talismans, Ever since Du Xiaofu cultivated the cultivation method of the golden-winged giant rocks, he wasn't very interested in the martial Tao of talismans. Ordinary martial Tao of talismans were far inferior to the attacks of the golden-winged giant rocks cultivation method. Moreover, the mysterious move was integrated into the attacks. Ordinary martial Tao of talismans couldn't be compared to it. Why would he still cultivate martial Tao of talismans? Unless it was as extraordinary as the wave-like free steps, then it was more like it. Then I'm afraid that the beast energy of other demonic beasts that you comprehend is far inferior to the beast energy of the golden-winged giant rocks, Qin Chun said. That doesn't matter. Even if it's not very useful to me, it's only by knowing yourself and your enemy that you can win 100 battles. If I can comprehend some of the beast energy of other demonic beasts, then I can easily deal with whoever uses their arterial souls to deal with me. Du Xiaofu grinned and said, Anyway, I can't go out now. I'll comprehend more beast energy. After all, we're all from the beast clan. Maybe it'll be helpful to the cultivation method of the golden-winged giant rocks. Know yourself and your enemy that you can win 100 battles. Your reason is very special. Qin Chun helplessly glanced at Du Xiaofu, then nodded slightly and said, Your way of thinking is actually not wrong. At least I think it's reasonable. But whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. After all, I haven't dabbled too much in the martial way. Also, I'm planning to go into seclusion to recover for a period of time. When the time comes, I'll be able to recover more. Brother Qin Chun, these should be useful to you, right? Hearing this, Du Xiaofu seemed to have thought of something. A qiankun bag appeared in his hands, then he took out a few jade bottles and some pills. Spirit Gathering Liquid, 9 Transformation Spirit Enhancing Pill, DUN Spiritual Liquid. Qin Qingchuan's illusory hand swept across and collected the jade bottles and pills in Du Xiaofu's hands. He said, Not bad. For my current situation, these should be of some use. I specially found them for you. Isn't that enough? There was a smile on Du Xiaofu's face. These pills and spiritual liquids that were beneficial to one's yuan spirit and mental energy were all sorted out from the qiankun bags of the Tianwu Academy students. They were beneficial to Jin Qingchuan's yuan spirit, and Du Xiaofu had not forgotten to take note of them. Have I not helped you enough, little ingrate? Jin Qingchun glared at Du Xiaofu, but there was a hint of gratitude in his eyes. Isn't it only right for the elder brother to take care of the younger brother? Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes and said, All right, I'm preparing to recover for a period of time. You should take your time to comprehend. Remember, do your best to stabilize your foundation before breaking through. There's no need to rush. Jin Qingchun was helpless against Du Xiaofu and did not wish to waste any more words with Du Xiaofu. As soon as he finished speaking, he entered the small pagoda. I'm going to cultivate too. I need to increase my strength. Otherwise, the next time I find a treasure, it will be snatched away by a shameless fellow like you. The small demon said. Am I that kind of person? I've always been a person who keeps his promises. Du Xiaofu said righteously. After which, he kept the small demon and the small pagoda that Jin Qingchun was hiding in back into his embrace. I'll take this mad demon Skywolf. Du Xiaofu's gaze landed on a spatial ripple in the distance where the silhouette of a mad demon Skywolf flickered. Holding the points card in his hand, he took a step forward and entered the spatial ripple under the dazzling light. Aoo! When Du Xiaofu's figure entered the space ripple, the mad demon Skywolf's phantom in the space ripple seemed to come alive. It suddenly roared, and its might soared. It seemed as if it wanted to swallow Du Xiaofu whole. The mad demon Skywolf's bloodline was not weak. Du Xiaofu remembered that Bing Qianli of the enforcement team had a mad demon Skywolf as his bloodline spirit. Walala! When his figure entered the spatial ripple, the light was so dazzling that Du Xiaofu did not realize that his points card had a total of 163,200 points. But in the blink of an eye, 800 points disappeared from his points card. The points were deducted every 24 hours. In other words, it would take 800 points to comprehend the mad demon Skywolf for 24 hours. In Tianwu Academy, 10 points could buy a set of beginner-grade martial technique or a set of beginner-grade medicinal pills. If this was the Stone City, a martial skill and elixir that had just reached the mobile grade would be enough to bankrupt many small and medium-sized clans and factions. But in Tianwu Academy, it would take 800 points to comprehend the Mad Demon Skywolf for a day. That was equivalent to 800 sets of beginner-grade martial techniques or 800 medicinal pills. This was only the price for 1 day of comprehension. If one were to comprehend the Mad Demon Skywolf for 10 days, it would cost 8,000 points. Fortunately, Du Xiaofu did not see it. If he did, he would be heartbroken. This was simply robbery. Chapter 271. Aoo! The howl of the wolf shook the heavens. When Du Xiaofu appeared in another space, there was a mountain range in that space. The mountain peak stood tall and straight. The shadow of a demon wolf suddenly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. It was a demonic wolf that was as strong as a lion. Its body was covered in thick scales, and its mouth was filled with sharp fangs. It looked extremely ferocious. At this moment, the demonic wolf shadow's body was as huge as a mountain. Its whole body was covered in runes, and it was emitting a terrifying fluctuation. What a terrifying Mad Demon Sky Wolf! Du Xiaofu was shocked. This was the real Mad Demon Sky Wolf. Compared to Bing Qianli's pulse spirit, its aura was many times stronger. It was rumored that the Mad Demon Sky Wolf was the king among the demonic beasts of the wolf race. It was said that it could even command the entire wolf race. Aoo! The Mad Demon Sky Wolf howled. Its whole body was covered in runes. Its terrifying aura shook the forest and the ground. It was as if a huge earthquake had started. It was enough to make all the demonic beasts crawl in fear. It was definitely the king among the demonic beasts. In Du Xiaofu's vision, the gigantic berserk demon Skywolf made its move. That mountain-sized body of the Skywolf dashed through the mountain range, smashing through mountain peaks. With a swipe of its claws, the gigantic boulders crumbled, and the mountain peaks were all sliced apart. Aoo! The Mad Demon Sky Wolf was constantly changing. Its power was terrifying, and it was incomparably ferocious. Large mountain peaks were directly torn apart, and the ground was shattered. So strong! Du Xiaofu was shocked. He did not expect the Mad Demon Sky Wolf to be so powerful. Du Xiaofu originally underestimated the Mad Demon Sky Wolf because of Bing Qianli. He thought that the Mad Demon Sky Wolf was only SOSO. At this moment, Du Xiaofu knew that it was not the case. It was just that Bing Qianli's pulse spirit was not enough. The real Mad Demon Sky Wolf, after growing up, would definitely be terrifying. In the space, the Mad Demon Sky Wolf howled and changed. Then, its huge body turned into mysterious runes that filled the sky. Light spread out, accompanied by a shocking energy. It was dazzling, and the mysterious runes were strangely and mysteriously revolving in front of Du Xiaofu. Comprehension, huh? Du Xiaofu was slightly surprised. This was the Mad Demon Sky Wolf's talisman engravings. If he could comprehend it, it would be helpful to the Golden Rocks cultivation method. Who knows, he might be able to have more tricks up his sleeve in the future. After being slightly surprised, Du Xiaofu sat down cross-legged as he looked at the dazzling rune energy. He immediately began to comprehend the mysterious runes that filled the sky. Du Xiaofu had just witnessed how terrifyingly powerful the Mad Demon Sirius was. Therefore, his comprehension of the Mad Demon Sirius's beast ability was extremely tempting. Calming himself down, Du Xiaofu knew that he needed to concentrate fully in order to comprehend the Mad Demon Sky Wolf's beast energy. As long as he could comprehend the Mad Demon Sky Wolf's mysterious patterns, he would definitely gain something. The transformation of the Mad Demon Sky Wolf's figure, the power that could move mountains and overturn seas, and tear apart the heavens and earth, was the evolution of the Mad Demon Sky Wolf's mysterious patterns. Once he comprehended these mysterious patterns, he would be able to understand their essence. Not long after, Du Xiaofu was already immersed in comprehension, entering a state of comprehension. Du Xiaofu had always been fast. Therefore, he began to fully immerse himself in comprehending the mad demon sky wolf's beast energy and mysteries, almost forgetting himself. While immersed in comprehension, Du Xiaofu was like a fish out of water, suddenly diving into the sea. Time slowly passed as well. Tianwu Academy. On the afternoon that Du Xiaofu beat up Gu Yu, who possessed the spiritual vein, the experts of the Divine Light Court hurriedly left with ugly expressions. Princess Qingxingnan could only leave with them. The other guests also took their leave one after another. However, Tianwu Academy had been in an uproar for the past few days. The extraordinary Gu Yu of the Divine Light Court, who possessed the spiritual vein constitution, was a 16 to 17-year-old pulsation realm consummation expert. His name shook the entire region, and he was definitely a top-notch existence among his peers. Such an existence, together with a terrifying flood dragon on the heavenly beast list that was comparable to a martial marquis, ended up being beaten up by the ferocious young man from Tianwu Academy. The terrifying flood dragon on the heavenly beast list was even killed by the ferocious young man with a single slap. With such a battle result, how could the students of Tianwu Academy not go wild with joy and feel their blood boiling? This was especially so in front of those from the Divine Light Court. Tianwu Academy felt as though they had vented their anger. That Du Xiaofu is too ferocious. However, seeing how ferocious he was towards Gu Yu, he is indeed quite likable. Seeing that arrogant Gu Yu being beaten up by Du Xiaofu until his face was swollen like a pig's head, I felt relieved. Did you guys see Gu Yu's face? I reckon that even his mother wouldn't be able to recognize him when he returns. I heard that that ferocious fellow escaped again. The elders weren't able to capture him either. I think that Du Xiaofu has contributed greatly to the academy this time around. The elders should reconsider and stop putting Du Xiaofu on the wanted list. Regardless of whether it was the freshmen, seniors, or even the right-in students, everyone was talking about Du Xiaofu. There were even some students who went up to the elders to request for them to remove Du Xiaofu from the wanted list. In any case, everyone was paying attention to Du Xiaofu. However, Du Xiaofu's name was still on the wanted list. All right. In a bamboo forest, a skinny and tan old man was gently lying on a bamboo rattan chair. He smiled faintly, appearing to be extremely happy. Grandfather, what are you so happy about? That lad isn't a descendant of our Xia clan. A lady spoke. Her hair was casually tied into a loose bun with a light purple flower inserted into it. She wasn't wearing any makeup and her lips weren't dyed red. I'm happy that I didn't misjudge him. Besides, if you're willing, why don't you let that lad become a member of our Xia clan? The old man smiled. His eyes were quite bright on his skinny and tanned face. There was no turbidity at all. He's still a young boy. The lady smiled sweetly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with intelligence. So what? Your grandmother was a lot older than me back then. Your mother was also a few years older than your father. Isn't she still fine? Women should be a few years older. Only then can they control those little boys. The old man continued to smile. The lady didn't say anything else. A gentle breeze blew through the bamboo forest, causing a few strands of hair to fall to her waist. It was a charming sight that could move one's soul. Brat, I didn't expect you to be in Tianwu Academy. In the imperial palace of the Stone Dragon Empire, a tall lady dressed in orange clothes spoke softly. Her eyebrows were slightly knitted together. She had a tall figure, and her curves were hazy. She looked to be in her early 20s, but she had already grown into a slender and elegant woman. At this moment, she seemed to have thought of something and her slender hands subconsciously rested on her perky buttocks. Her enchanting face was filled with anger. That brat, he must have seen all of her embarrassing parts back then. Even if he was treating my injuries, he still saw everything. The tall and beautiful woman was none other than Qingxingnan. Thinking about how her secret place that had never been touched by the xenomorphs had already been touched by that brat, she felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. She didn't know if that brat had any other tricks up his sleeve. Brat, you've ruined our sex plan this time and seriously injured junior brother Guyu. I'm afraid I'll be punished when I return to the divine court. I'll definitely settle the score with you the next time I see you. Qing Xingnan raised her eyebrows slightly and pouted her delicate red lips. Dense mist rose from the mountain range, making it seem like an otherworldly paradise. Mist lingered around the mountain peaks and extraordinary spiritual herbs were everywhere. The energy of heaven and earth was astonishing. At the peak of the mountain, in front of an exquisite courtyard, a young lady was sitting cross-legged. Her body was enveloped in a dazzling white light. Chi. After a long time, the young lady opened her eyes and slowly stood up. She looked to be around 14 or 15 years old, but her figure was already curvy. Coupled with her delicate face, it wouldn't be long before she would grow into a slender and elegant woman who would stun the world. The girl looked into the distance, her eyes clear and pure, so pure that it made people feel as if they didn't belong to this world. She curled her lips and murmured, "Brother Xiaofu, I will cultivate well. I will work hard to become an expert. You have to wait for me. One day, I will appear in front of you. When that day comes, I will no longer need your protection. Whoever dares to bully you, I will beat them up for you. In the future, only I can bully you in this world. In this world, only I can bully you." As she spoke, the young lady smiled. She counted with her fingers and said, "Even Auntie can bully you. All right, Sister Xuan can also bully you." "That's it." Chi. A crisp sound was heard. A small green bird flew out from the clouds in the sky and landed on the young lady's shoulder. This little green bird was only the size of a child's palm. Its green feathers glowed with a little light, and its small black eyes shone with a bright light. It blinked and chirped, as if it was saying something to Dai Xingyu. "Little Qingqing, you can't bully Brother Xiaofu either," the young lady said to the small green bird. A smile was revealed on her young face, which was filled with youthfulness. Chi. The small green bird flapped its wings and rolled its black eyes in protest. The young lady smiled and said, "Little Qingqing, there's nothing you can do if you don't agree. In any case, you can't bully Brother Xiaofu." Time flew. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Du Xiaofu, who was within the heavenly martial seal, did not know how much time had passed. He was only immersed in the comprehension of the crazy demon Skywolf. I understand. It can actually be like this. Within the space, for some unknown reason, Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. A smile was revealed on his face. Soon after, the seals in his hands began to change. As the seals in his hands changed, a lightning-like radiance flickered in his clear eyes. Today's update at noon was not in time. Therefore, Little Yu added an update to apologize to everyone. Today's update has been completed. Brothers who have not slept, please rest early. Chapter 272. Walala! Translator, Sparrow Editor. Sparrow Du Xiaofu's body was surrounded by a special type of talisman inscriptions. These talisman inscriptions were different from the talisman inscriptions formed by the golden-winged great rock, and their form was also different. To Du Xiaofu, ever since he started cultivating the cultivation technique of the golden-winged great rock race, the talisman inscriptions related to the golden-winged great rock had become an innate part of him, fusing with his body, limbs, bones, meridians, and blood vessels. However, at this moment, the talisman inscriptions formed by the changes in Du Xiaofu's hand seals were faintly related to martial techniques, as well as the martial veins in his body. They exuded a domineering aura and feeling when he executed a mysterious move. Aoo! When the talisman inscriptions were formed, the talisman inscriptions before Du Xiaofu evolved and formed the phantom of a mad demon skywolf. It was as if it was alive, and its howl shook the heavens. When the phantom of the mad demon skywolf was formed, a slight smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. However, his gaze was still contemplative as he muttered, "It seems like it's still lacking a bit. It has the form but not the spirit. Continue to comprehend it. Walala." The phantom of the mad demon Skywolf once again transformed into a sky full of talisman inscriptions before revolving around Du Xiaofu's body, continuously evolving and evolving. Unknowingly, it was already early winter. Early in the morning, it was as if something was stirring up a cluster of night clouds in the eastern sky. Along with the color, a faint silver halo of light surrounded the entire horizon. Mist lingered in the sky, and the sky was bright. The morning air was chilly, but the 4 seasons didn't affect cultivators at all. In the ancient Great Hall, several elders of Tianwu Academy were seated. In the upper seats were Elder Sun Biyue, Elder He Hu, Elder Shangguan, Elder Murong Shi, and the others. Everyone, are you all ready to deal with that brat Du Xiaofu's matter? Sun Biyue looked at all the elders in the hall and asked. All the students in the academy are paying attention to this. We need to deal with this as well. Du Xiaofu has contributed greatly to Tianwu Academy this time around. However, killing and injuring a student, arresting the enforcers, destroying the herb farm, and stealing the green bamboo spirit fruit is a huge crime, Elder Liao said. There wasn't much of a change in his expression, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking. There are merits and demerits. Putting aside his merits and demerits, that lad's talent is frightening. Even Gu Yu, who possesses the spirit vein physique, isn't a match for him. If that lad were to leave our Tianwu Academy, the other powers would probably thank us immediately, a blue-robed middle-aged elder said. That kid's talent is amazing, but we can't ignore his merits and demerits. He has made a contribution, a great contribution. However, that brat is also a great calamity to the academy. If we don't punish him, I'm afraid it won't make sense. Could it be that as long as one's talent is strong, one can do as one pleases in the academy? An elder said. He didn't have any intention of targeting Du Xiaofu. Instead, he spoke the truth. What everyone says makes sense, Elder Liao said. However, it's still too early to talk about punishing that calamity. At the very least, we have to capture that brat first. That brat has already entered the Tianwuxia realm, and we don't know when he will come out. It's impossible for us to capture that brat in there, a middle-aged woman said. Hearing those words, everyone's gaze froze. Indeed, it was too early to talk about punishing that brat before they even captured him. That brat seems to have a close relationship with Ouyang Shuang and Du Xiaoman. Why don't we do this? Let's hand it over to Elder Murong and Elder Shangguan. No matter what, we have to capture that brat first. Elder Sun's eyes moved slightly before landing on Murong Shi and Elder Shangguan. I think it's a good idea. It would be more convenient for the two of you to capture that brat. Elder He Hu also nodded. No one had any objections. All the elders already knew that Du Xiaofu had a close relationship with Ouyang Shuang, and that he was Du Xiaoman's younger brother. Elder Murong Shi was Ouyang Shuang's uncle, Elder Shangguan was Du Xiaoman's teacher, and Du Xiaoman was Elder Shangguan's personal disciple. With this layer of relationship, everything would naturally be much easier to handle. Murong Shi slightly clenched the folding fan in his hand. Immediately, his eyes widened as he said, Can I not interfere in the matter of that little calamity? No, it's settled then, Elder Sun said to Murong Shi. In terms of elder status, she was a bit higher than Murong Shi. Let us be in charge. But first, you have to agree to one condition, Elder Shangguan said to all the elders. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. Du Xiaofu was still comprehending the beast energy of the Skywolf. The seals in his hands were changing, and the runes were dazzling. Oh! The wolf howled. The mysterious runes arranged themselves and condensed into the phantom of the Skywolf. In the midst of the howl, a terrifying power spread out. Although the mad demon Sky Wolf phantom that Du Xiaofu had comprehended was not as powerful as the mad demon Sky Wolf that he had seen before, it was still much stronger than the one he had seen 10 days ago. It's about time, Du Xiaofu murmured with a smile on his face. In the process of comprehending the beast energy of the Sky Wolf, Du Xiaofu inadvertently integrated it into the mysterious move. He did not expect that it would achieve an unexpected effect. Just like when he practiced Hadouken and Stormy Wave's Palm in the Stone City, The mysterious move could perfect Hadouken and Stormy Wave's palm. At this moment, it was also very useful for the Skywolf's beast energy. It could even connect with the martial veins. It was as if it could stimulate the martial veins. There were many other mysterious and wonderful uses, which gave Du Xiaofu a lot of unexpected benefits. Continue to comprehend other beast energy. Du Xiaofu murmured, then got up and left the space. He continued to comprehend other beast energy in the Tianwu Talisman realm. Time passed slowly. In Du Xiaofu's comprehension, time seemed to have been forgotten by Du Xiaofu. In the following time, in addition to comprehending the beast energy of the Skywolf, Du Xiaofu also comprehended other beast energy. In Du Xiaofu's imagination, comprehending by analogy in the path of cultivation would always be beneficial in the end. The effects were just as Du Xiaofu had expected. He was able to comprehend and come into contact with different beast abilities, comprehend by analogy, and return to his roots. All of these could complement each other. However, it wasn't an easy task to comprehend any beast energy to such an extent. Du Xiaofu was immersed in a frenzy of comprehension as various runes evolved, arranged, and comprehended. It was only at this moment that Du Xiaofu realized that the Tianwu Academy did indeed have an extraordinary foundation. Just the Tianwu Talisman alone was a vast amount of treasures. In the frenzied comprehension, Du Xiaofu felt that his comprehension of the golden-winged great rock was quite useful. Unknowingly, many of the golden-winged great rock's comprehension problems were easily solved under Du Xiaofu's frenzied comprehension. However, Du Xiaofu was still not satisfied. In the end, he chose the beast energy closest to the golden-winged great rock's bloodline to comprehend. Among the beast energy Du Xiaofu comprehended, there were condor beasts, eagle beasts, and the beast closest to him was a scarlet one. It was a demonic beast on the heavenly beast ranking. Its terrifying aura was even more shocking than the frenzied demon Skywolf. Du Xiaofu felt that he had improved by quite a bit after comprehending various beasts. However, it was a little mixed. Just like what his elder brother Jinqi Chun was worried about, being mixed without mastering it was a taboo for cultivators. Du Xiaofu would not walk down this taboo path. This was also not the intention of Du Xiaofu. Therefore, Du Xiaofu decided to leave the state of comprehension. He had comprehended a lot, but the key was to integrate them. Du Xiaofu could feel the terror of all kinds of beast energy through his comprehension. If he could master all of them, he would be able to truly use them for himself. When he was in trouble, these comprehensions would become extremely powerful and terrifying. Du Xiaofu left the state of comprehension and arrived at the first level of the heavenly martial talisman, just outside the state of comprehension. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had already been in the state of comprehension for 3 whole months. He had wholeheartedly immersed himself in comprehending various beast energy for 3 months. At this time, Du Xiaofu's scorecard, which originally had 160,000 points, only had slightly more than 1,000 points left. In 3 months, he had spent 160,000 points, which was equivalent to 160,000 dynamic grade pills. Such a price was astonishing. Look, that's Du Xiaofu. It really is Du Xiaofu. It's that valiant young man. So this guy has been hiding in the heavenly martial talisman all this time. Chapter 273. No wonder there hasn't been any news of him for 3 months. As Du Xiaofu reached the first level of the Heaven Martial Seal realm, the Comprehension realm, the Battle realm, and the Spirit realm, several young men and women immediately recognized Du Xiaofu. Junior brother Du, did you just come out? A woman wearing a long dress with a slit walked towards Du Xiaofu. The slit of her dress extended all the way to above her thighs, revealing her long, slender, and fair legs. She wore a tight-fitting shirt that revealed her shoulders, unable to hide her soft, boneless waist. In front of her chest, there was a deep, white cleavage. What a seductive woman! You are? Du Xiaofu frowned. He did not recognize this person. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu's gaze could not help but sweep over those slender, fair legs. Inadvertently, His gaze once again landed on the deep, white cleavage in front of the woman's chest. Little lecher, where are you looking at? Want to touch it? The seductive woman straightened her body and directly stepped in front of Du Xiaofu, causing her originally curvaceous body to become even more perfect and alluring at this moment. She completely ignored Du Xiaofu's gaze, and even carried a hint of teasing, causing the surrounding young men to have hot nosebleeds. Du Xiaofu was stunned and instantly jumped in fright, directly taking a step back in fright. Pu Piu. Seeing Du Xiaofu's appearance, the woman could not help but laugh. Her smile was extremely cute and charming. She said to Du Xiaofu, "All right, junior brother Du, I won't tease you anymore. I'm Li Shui, Ouyang Shuang's classmate, and also her friend. I've heard her mention you before. So it's senior sister." Hearing this, Du Xiaofu immediately asked Li Shui, "May I ask how she is now? How can she be? Hasn't she also entered the Heaven Martial Seal realm and been in seclusion for a long time? Looks like you haven't seen her inside." Li Shui looked at Du Xiaofu and pursed her lips into a smile, drawing out an extremely enchanting arc. She smiled and said, "You're so worried about her. Looks like your relationship with that girl is quite deep. Could it be that there's a special relationship between the two of you?" "She's my elder sister," Du Xiaofu said helplessly. "Really? But you too, Senior Du Xiaoman, is Li Shuiyi's elder sister." Li Shui looked at Du Xiaofu and once again took a step forward. Her graceful body was practically sticking close to Du Xiaofu's body. Her slender, white, tall, and beautiful legs revealed the slit of her long skirt. Her fair and tender long legs were even more tightly stuck to Du Xiaofu's thigh. Her pink, tender, and red lips slightly pouted, as if she wanted to entice others to kiss her. She said, "How about this? What do you think of senior sister? Do you want to marry senior sister and bring her back to be your wife?" A delicate fragrance assailed his nostrils. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu was instantly startled. He hurriedly dodged and said, "Senior sister, I'm still young. I'm not mature enough." As his voice faded, Du Xiaofu directly fled as if he was fleeing for his life. After that, he hurriedly charged into the battle realm. "Pu Piu!" Li Shui laughed again. Looking at Du Xiaofu, who had charged into the battle realm, her lips curled into a smile as she said, "I didn't expect such a ferocious little guy to be so shy. Stop teasing Ouyang's little brother. Be careful that when Ouyang comes out and finds out that you dared to tease her little brother, she'll definitely settle the score with you. Didn't you see that the others beside you were all having nosebleeds when they saw you?" A delicate and pretty girl walked to Li Shui's side. Her gentle and quiet temperament was a stark contrast to Li Shui's. "Those guys aren't worthy of my teasing." Li Shui swept her gaze across the few youths who were peeking their heads out from afar. Then, she chuckled and said, "It's more interesting to tease that ferocious little guy. I bet countless female students in the academy will be envious of me. He's entered the battle realm. I wonder if he'll set a record," the delicate and pretty girl said as she looked at the spatial ripples at the entrance of the battle realm. Hearing this, Li Shui's face turned serious as she said, "It's not easy to set a record in the battle realm. Breaking a record is even more difficult." "That's true. It's said that in the past few hundred years, only a handful of people have been able to set a record. Right now, the two fellows at the top of the martial ranking have only set a few special records. They haven't broken any of the records left behind by their predecessors," the delicate and pretty girl said. Li Shui said, "Back then, the academy was filled with experts and extremely talented individuals. It's said that a long time ago, when the academy was at its most prosperous, its reputation spread far and wide. There were countless experts and every single one of them was extremely famous. The records left behind by those people in the battle realm are too difficult for the later generations to break. I remember now. 20 years ago, there was a rumor that a record was broken in the battle realm. A person who had just entered the pulse spirit realm managed to step into the 5th level of the battle realm. Right now, his name is still on the 5th level of the battle realm." The delicate and pretty girl seemed to have recalled something. Li Shui raised her eyebrows slightly and said, "You're talking about Du Tingxian, who is ranked 2nd on the bounty list, right? His name seems to be ranked 10th on the 5th level of the battle realm. Since the establishment of Tianwu Academy until now, he's the only one who managed to enter the top 10 in terms of talent and potential. It's said that he's the only person who managed to leave his name on the 5th level of the battle realm in the past 1,000 years. But I don't know why he ended up on the Academy's bounty list. The delicate and pretty girl sighed. Then, her eyes flickered as she looked at Li Shui and said, "Why don't we go to the battle realm to take a look and see if Du Xiaofu can leave a record in the battle realm?" "Is that so?" Li Shui's eyebrows twitched slightly. Then, she smiled and said, "Good idea. Seeing him break a record with our own eyes should be a good thing. TSK. Then, the two girls laughed and followed Du Xiaofu into the battle realm. Inside the battle realm, there was not a single space. Instead, every floor was a total space. As long as the students entered the battle realm and were on the same floor, they would all be inside. The dangers they would encounter might be the same. It was extremely mysterious. Du Xiaofu entered the battle realm. There were many differences between the battle realm and the comprehension realm. Within the continuous space, there were slight ripples in the air. Everywhere was desolate and looked exactly like reality. It didn't have the dazzling and illusory appearance of the comprehension realm. Ao. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard. They were all Xiantian realm demonic beasts. Destroy. Du Xiaofu destroyed the demonic beasts with a wave of his hand. They turned into dazzling runes that filled the sky. Everything seemed so real. The first level is too weak. It seems like I have to go to the higher levels of the battle realm. Du Xiaofu muttered. The battle realm was a place that specialized in challenges. Passing the first to second level in the battle realm meant that one had the strength of a Xiantian realm expert. Passing the third level meant that one had the strength of a pulsating realm expert. And so on and so forth. Du Xiaofu guessed that he did not know if he could pass through the third level to the fourth level. With his strength, it should not be a problem for him to reach the fourth level. However, the battlefield was illusory after all, and his cultivation level was still at the pulsating realm. After entering the war realm, Du Xiaofu also wanted to challenge a record. He remembered that the middle-aged man at the entrance had said that if he could create or break a record in the war realm, he would be rewarded with points within the war realm. The higher the record, the more points he would be rewarded. To Du Xiaofu, this was extremely tempting. Not long after Du Xiaofu entered the battle realm, the news spread and caused an uproar in the entire Tianwu Academy. This should be Du Xiaofu's first time in the battle realm. I wonder if that ferocious youth will leave behind a record. It has been a long time since someone set a record in the battle realm. It has been a long time since someone broke a record. I heard that there are already people waiting at the fourth level of the battle realm. They want to see if he can leave behind a record. As the news spread, a large number of students rushed into the battle realm in the heavenly martial talisman region. They wanted to see if that ferocious youth would leave a record in the battle realm with their own eyes. They wanted to see with their own eyes the moment he left behind a record. That was a scene that only happened once every few decades. It was said that in the past 1,000 years, the only person who could break a record in the battle realm was Du Tingxian, who was currently ranked 2nd on the wanted list. So. A large number of students rushed into the heavenly martial talisman region and lined up to enter the battle realm. What day is it today? Why are there so many little bastards in the battle realm? The middle-aged man who was sleeping on the large rock at the entrance of the heavenly martial talisman region grinned and continued to sleep, completely ignoring the others. That brat has entered the battle realm? Should we go and take a look? In one of the courtyards, Elder He Hu said to the other elders around him. His eyes were filled with interest. Chapter 274. Let's not go. Since that kid is in the battle domain, let's just let him challenge it and see if he can create some sort of record. Elder Shangguan said to the crowd. If we go, I can guarantee that we will be scared away immediately. Let that kid challenge the battle domain. He won't be able to stay in the battle domain for long. Mu Rongxi raised his eyes and said. Within the mountain stream, a giant python soared into the sky, spitting out blazing flames as if it wanted to burn everything. Destroy! Du Xiaofu's figure shot out, waving his hand and slapping out. A faint golden light flickered, instantly dispersing the flames. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a fist suddenly shot out, landing on the giant python's hideous head with a loud bang, scattering it into runes that filled the sky and dissipated. When the runes that filled the sky dissipated, Du Xiaofu's figure also disappeared in the air. The 3rd level really can't hold Du Xiaofu at all. He's gone to the 4th level. With his strength, he should have gone to the 4th level. The first 3 levels were just testing the waters. Pity that we can't enter the 4th level with our strength, sigh. In the surrounding mountains, rumbling sounds echoed throughout the mountains, as many figures were caught in various kinds of bitter battles. The mountains were clustered together, with waves and peaks, layer upon layer. The cliffs that seemed to have been carved by knives and axes stood tall, stretching endlessly. When Du Xiaofu's figure appeared on a mountain top, his gaze swept around, his brows slightly raised. There seemed to be quite a few figures flashing around. He's here! Du Xiaofu has reached the 4th level. Look, it's Du Xiaofu. He really has reached the 4th level. Following Du Xiaofu's appearance, many voices of discussion rang out from the surroundings, as gaze after gaze immediately fell on Du Xiaofu. On top of a mountain, there were hundreds of people watching. Many of them were not senior students, and many of them were familiar faces to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu looked over. There seemed to be quite a number of law enforcers who had fought with him before. Why are there still so many people? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. He had already seen quite a number of people on the 3rd level. There were at least 1,000 of them. However, there weren't many people on the 4th floor. After all, not everyone had the strength to reach the 4th floor. Walala! At this moment, Du Xiaofu was surprised to find that the points card in his hand, which originally only had a few dozen points, suddenly changed. His points suddenly soared to 120,000 points. Did my luck explode? How did my points increase, and by so much? Du Xiaofu was surprised. 120,000 points was not a small number. He only had a little more than 160,000 points. Junior brother, we meet again. I've been waiting for you for almost a day. A clear voice sounded. A hot girl walked in front of Du Xiaofu. Beside her was a delicate and quiet girl. Senior sister. Du Xiaofu's eyes trembled. He didn't expect to see Li Shui in the 4th floor of the battle domain. It seemed that this woman's strength was extraordinary. Otherwise, she wouldn't have appeared in the 4th floor of the battle domain. Junior brother Du, are you wondering why your points increased? The quiet woman beside Li Shui looked at the strange expression on Du Xiaofu's face. It was clear that she was observant. She said, You should still be in the Pulse Realm, right? Yes, I'm still in the Pulse Realm. Du Xiaofu nodded. He looked at the quiet girl in front of him. It was a stark contrast to Li Shui. You're really in the Pulse Realm. Abnormal. Hearing this, Li Shui's expression changed. She looked at Du Xiaofu in shock. Her bright eyes trembled. She couldn't believe it, but the truth was right in front of her. She had no choice but to believe it. The quiet girl said, Junior brother, you're able to enter the Pulse Spirit Realm with your Pulse Realm cultivation base. That's why you're able to receive rewards from the Combat Realm. If Junior brother can enter the 5th level of the Combat Realm with your Pulse Realm cultivation base, I believe the rewards will be even more amazing. Senior sister, are you saying that if I break through the Pulse Realm and enter the 5th floor, the rewards will be much less? Du Xiaofu looked at the quiet girl and asked. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Yes. The quiet girl nodded. Looking at Du Xiaofu's expectant eyes, she thought to herself, Is this guy really going to enter the 5th floor today? Du Xiaofu looked up and said softly, Looks like I'll have to try the 5th floor. I wonder how many points I'll get. Junior brother, you can start on the 4th floor. So many people have come here to see if you can leave a record here. Li Shui looked at Du Xiaofu and said. The surprise in her eyes had not calmed down. She thought about how this savage young man was able to kill the profound Cloud Scarlet Jiao, who was comparable to a martial marquis, and beat up Gu Yu, who had a spirit-pulsed body. How shocking was that? They're all here to see me? Du Xiaofu looked around and was confused. He thought these people were here to train, but he didn't expect them to be here to see him. Of course they're here to see you. You're famous in the academy, Li Shui said to Du Xiaofu. How about it? Have you thought about it? Do you want to marry me? I like it when you're immature. Du Xiaofu was surprised. He quickly changed the topic. This Li Shui was a demon. It was better to stay away from her. He looked at the quiet girl and asked, Is it hard to leave a record here? Of course it's hard. The gentle and quiet girl earnestly explained to Du Xiaofu. There are 2 types of records left behind. The first is to create a new record. This is a bit simpler. As long as you do something that no one has ever done before, but is extremely powerful, then you can create a new record. For example, the second place on the martial ranking, Spirited Jade Maiden Gu Xinyan, once left a record. She rushed from the first floor to the 4th floor with the fastest speed. The current first place on the martial ranking, General Budian Shanhe, once fought for 11 days and 1 night in the 4th floor and left a record. First place on the martial ranking? This General Budian Shanhe is quite fierce. Du Xiaofu murmured. Although creating a record is difficult, it's even harder than breaking a record. It's definitely not easy to break the records left behind by the top experts of Tianwu Academy. It's said that in the past 1,000 years, only about 20 years ago did a senior called Du Tingxian break a record and enter the top 10. The quiet girl continued. Du Tingxian. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and a smile appeared on his face. He didn't expect his drunkard father to have left behind a legend in the war realm. Then let's begin. Hearing that his drunkard father had left behind a legend in the war realm, Du Xiaofu became even more interested. Profound qi surged out from his feet. He shook his arms and a faint golden light flickered around his body. Like a rock spreading its wings, he immediately rushed forward. At this moment, Du Xiaofu planned to charge into the war realm and walk the path his drunkard father had walked. Let's not charge in. Let's just stand in the safe zone and watch. Seeing Du Xiaofu rush out, the quiet girl pursed her lips and smiled. Her temperament was extraordinary. I'm starting to like this little fellow more and more. What an interesting person. Li Shui looked at Du Xiaofu's back and smiled charmingly. Who knows how many people are chasing after you in the academy? Why do you have to cause trouble for him? I can guarantee that once Ouyang Shuang comes out of seclusion, she'll definitely settle the score with you. The quiet girl said to Li Shui. How am I causing trouble for him? Li Shui stared at the quiet girl and asked. Furthermore, how many people do you think will dare to cause trouble for him now? Don't forget that you have the Overlord's spirit Yu by your side. In his eyes, you're his exclusive property and no one can touch you. Those who have spoken a few words with you will all end up miserable. The quiet girl said. That bastard Yu is hard to deal with. Hearing this, Li Shui frowned slightly. Then, a smile appeared in her eyes as she said, Actually, I also want to know if this fierce little fellow can make that bastard Yu suffer. Boom! As Du Xiaofu rushed out, the mountain in front of him suddenly shone with a dazzling light. The mountain trembled, and a rumbling sound resounded through the sky as if the mountain was collapsing. Energy fluctuated, and then a huge stone man blocked Du Xiaofu's path. Runes spread out as it looked at Du Xiaofu like an elephant looking at an ant. Its huge hand clenched into a fist, and like a meteor streaking across the sky, it directly pressed down on Du Xiaofu. So what if you're big? Du Xiaofu shouted. His body was wrapped in a faint golden light as he stomped his foot and punched out. Boom! The fist was wrapped in golden light, emitting an endless dazzling light. The domineering aura was like a volcanic eruption. Du Xiaofu did not dodge, and his fist immediately collided with the huge meteorite-like fist. Rumble! The two fists, one big and one small, collided. Even Du Xiaofu's body wasn't as big as the fist, but the energy exploded in the air as if it was going to shatter space. The dazzling runes shattered, and the momentum shook everyone's soul. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, the huge stone man was destroyed inch by Du Xiaofu's fist, and it turned into runes that filled the sky and dissipated. I originally planned to explode today, but the plot of the past 2 days wasn't easy to write. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.